There's a reason they built over it. They didn't want to forget. They wanted it crushed so deep, no one could ever remember. It started with a signal, not loud, not urgent, just a quiet pulse through the sump vox grid, one long tone, then 3 shorts, repeating. Enforcer Marlin thought it was interference. He logged it, scrubbed it, reported it, but it kept coming back, not from the upper spires, not from mid-hive, not even from the sump levels. Origin below Sector 13, the machine adept confirmed. Coordinates not mapped, structure listed as sealed since 38 AD. That was impossible. Nothing stayed sealed on Necromunda that long, unless it was meant to stay forgotten. The patrol was small. Marlin, Jack, his second, 2 rookies, and a cog servitor called Dredge 6 that coughed rust every time it moved. The descent wasn't logged. Sector 13 didn't exist on current maps. It had been buried, not collapsed, deliberately erased. They reached it after 4 hours of silent drop chamber descent. The platform groaned like it didn't want to stop. When it did, they stepped off into air that smelled of fungus, ferrosteam, and something sweet underneath. Something dead. "Lights on," Marlin ordered. Jack flicked her torch forward. The beam cut through thick sump mist and settled on the first wall. A message, etched into the grime. Not sprayed, scratched. "Don't remember us below it." Blood smeared into the ferrocrete. Old, brown, but shaped like handprints. Dozens, each one small, each one reaching up. "This isn't right," Jack muttered. The servitor buzzed. Vox interference increasing, subsurface broadcast pattern inconsistent with Mechanicus protocol. "Meaning what?" asked one rookie. "Meaning," Marlin said, "this isn't a distress signal." He raised his bolt pistol. "It's a lure." They moved deeper. No signs of life, just decay, abandoned corridors, old gang graffiti layered over by strange, spiraled symbols no one recognized. And the mist, always the mist. Then the first door, massive, sealed, electro-lock fused shut, marked with a single phrase in High Gothic, condemned by the ecclesiarchy under penal article 13 F, heretical infrastructure. "They buried a chapel?" Jack asked. Marlin looked at the seal again. "Number B." "They buried something pretending to be one," the servitor sparked. Its vox began screeching. Not feedback, not static. Voices, children, chanting. Backwards. The rookies backed away. "We need to report this," one said. "We are the report," Marlin snapped. He reached out and touched the door. It hissed, opened. No mechanism, no gears. Just compliance. Beyond it, a corridor made entirely of bone, human, fused, melted together by some impossible heat. The signal pulsed louder, 3 short tones. Then, "Come down. We remember you. Come see." Jack vomited. The rookies tried to run. Only Marlin kept walking. Not because he wanted to, because something inside him remembered. "I've been here before," he whispered. "When I was a child. I think I died here." The corridor laughed. Software wet, hungry. Signal originated from a buried level beneath Hive Sector 13. Initial signs of memory disruption, impossible architecture, and recursive vocal patterns, believed to be psychogenic contamination. If this reaches you, seal it. Forget it. Do not answer when they call. You never really go missing in Necromunda. You just sink deep enough that no one cares anymore. They lost contact with Patrol Echo Vermilion 6 hours after descent. No distress signal, no gunfire, just a sudden spike in bio readings, heart rates, brain activity, and then silence. At first, the precinct thought it was another sump signal bounce. Happens all the time, but something didn't sit right with Enforcer Halvith. He'd served under Marlin. Marlin didn't go quiet, even when he should have. So they sent a second team, not full strength, just enough to check the line and report back. No engagement, no deep search, no contact with local gangs. Simple recon. The drop team included Halvith Trooper, Dren Adept, Lexi, Luth Servo Skull, Echo 9. They were armed light, standard sump loadout, not because they didn't expect trouble, because they didn't expect to come back. The elevator platform stank of oil and spoiled corpse starch, a smell you only noticed if you'd been down this deep before. And Halveth had. Marlin's team dropped here, Luth asked, checking her datapad. Yeah, Halveth muttered, and if they followed the trace, they would have moved east. Toward the old ecclesiarch seal. That's the one. The corridor greeted them with stale heat. No airflow, no echoes, just dripping. Dren glanced down. His boots were in liquid, but it wasn't sump. Too thick, too dark. It clung. What is this? He asked. Luth scanned it. Organic matter, degraded, not fresh, but there's neurological tissue in the mix. Brain? Dren asked. She nodded slowly, or something pretending to be one. They moved deeper. Vox started breaking up halfway in. Echo 9 screeched static bursts and floated erratically. The lights flickered, then dimmed entirely. Luth activated her shoulder lamp. The beam caught something on the wall, not a person, an outline, like a body burned into the ferrocrete. Arms out, mouth open, no features, just the impression of pain. That wasn't in the blueprints, Halveth said. You checked the blueprints? Dren asked. I wrote them. Then the whispers began, not voices. Breaths, from the ceiling, from the walls, inside their helmets. Luth gripped her scanner. Readings made no sense. Temperature, minus 12 degrees Celsius. Airflow, none. Sound index, dreaming. That wasn't a reading, that was a word. They found Marlin's first trace 10 meters in. A chunk of armor plating, still hot, etched with one sentence, "We were never alone down here." Halveth raised his weapon. The hallway groaned, then shifted, not collapsed, rearranged. Behind them, the path was gone, replaced by bone-fused corridors and curved halls that hadn't been there seconds ago. We're in it now, Halveth whispered. In what? Dren asked. Whatever made Marlin forget himself. Echo 9 floated forward, stopped, recorded static, played it back, but it wasn't static, it was crying. A woman. Software repeated. I remember, I remember, I remember, I remember. Then silence. Luth's scanner sparked. An alert blinked on screen. Subject identified. Drea 0 error. Recursive entity detected. Override. Memory lock. YN. She looked at Halveth. Drea, that's not possible. She's from the vault cases, he said. She's not from here. But the Hive didn't care about origin. It only cared about patterns. Dren moved forward, stepped on something soft, looked down. A face, flat, pale, eyes closed, sunk into the floor like a fossil. It opened its eyes. He didn't scream. He couldn't. His mouth was gone, replaced by hive-grown stitch flesh. Halveth fired. The face didn't bleed. It smiled, then whispered one word. Stay. Luth dragged Dren back. Half his chest was pulsing, not bleeding, just rewriting, veins spelling words, letters, a phrase. We remember you too. Halveth stared at the changing walls. They weren't walls anymore. They were people, stacked, fused, looping through the same movement, again and again and again. A girl falling, a man screaming, a squad entering, never exiting. They had stepped into a looped Hive memory, and it was aware. Patrol Marlin is lost. Sector is non-physical. Architecture adaptive. Reality soft. I am marking this point as a no-return line. If you cross it, you better hope your memories don't scream, because if they do, they'll come looking for you. The face in the floor didn't blink again. It just stared. Its eyes were dry, cracked like old glass, and its expression didn't move. Frozen in a kind of peace that only makes sense if you're already dead. Halveth knelt down slowly. Dren was behind him, still alive, but breathing shallow. The letters were still growing across his chest, crawling like scarabs under his skin. Luth, Halveth muttered, can we burn it out? She didn't answer. She was staring at the wall. Dozens of faces, some clear, some half-formed, all pressed into the ferrocrete like damp clay. But they weren't sculpted. They were absorbed. This corridor wasn't built, she whispered. It was grown. She raised her scanner again. The readings were nonsense. Timestamps looping. humidity measurements forming words, electromagnetic spikes shaped into a name, Dreya.01. Mirror, host. Halveth pulled Dren to his feet. "We're turning around," he said. "You saw the walls," Luth replied. "There's nothing left to go back to." She was right. The entrance was gone, replaced by a corridor of spine columns and eye sockets, each eye blinking independently, watching. They moved forward. They had no choice. The deeper they went, the more the hive changed. Not just structurally, emotionally. The air carried weight, not pressure. Emotion, like walking into a room that remembered grief. Every breath felt like mourning something you hadn't lost yet. Dren was hallucinating. He kept whispering things under his breath. Sector 6, tunnel breach protocol. My brother didn't scream. His voice echoed twice, once from his mouth, once from the wall. Halveth scanned the wall again. There was a faint imprint, a repeating pattern like fingerprints spiraling outward in a ritual circle. Not cult work, too ordered, too systemic. At the next chamber, they stopped. A statue stood in the center, not placed, grown, a full enforcer, fused into the ground, uniform intact, badge number etched into his helmet, V13, Marlen, throne. Halveth breathed. "Is that him?" Luth asked. He stepped closer. The statue's mouth opened, not slowly, all at once, like stone cracking under a scream. It spoke. "You brought her again. You don't know what she is. You think she's new, but she's always been here." The statue smiled. "You made her remember." Dren collapsed. His mouth returned, torn open in a grin. He was laughing, but not like a person, like a hive vent choking on steam. Halveth raised his weapon, fired. The statue didn't shatter. It absorbed the shot, and in return whispered, "Welcome home, Dreya." Luth screamed. She backed away. "That's not my name." But her scanner glitched again. Now it read, "User, Dreya.01. Memory tether recognized, host stability, weakening." "It's rewriting you," Halveth growled. "No," Luth said. "It's not rewriting, it's restoring." They moved again, deeper, always deeper, because now the walls weren't just faces. They were watching, and some of them looked exactly like the people still alive. Halveth in full enforcer gear, Luth holding her scanner, Dren laughing without eyes, and beneath each wall etching. A date, tomorrow, the next day, a week from now, as if they'd already died. "This isn't a warning," Halveth said. "It's a schedule." At the next hall, the Vox came alive, not from the ship, not from their communications, from inside the hive. The walls vibrated as it spoke. "We remember your breath. We remember your thoughts. We remember your deaths. You are already part of us. You were always part of us." Dren's body convulsed. His face split open into a mask of waxy bone. From within, a new face emerged. Small, female, smiling. "Hello again," it said. "I've missed being remembered." Patrol Marlen is confirmed as absorbed. Hive structure mimics memory, absorbs identity. Luth's designation compromised. Dren lost. We're being catalogued, recorded, predicted. If you find this, don't look at the walls, because once they see you, you're already one of them. There was no map anymore. The walls shifted too often, signs reversed, floors sank when no one was watching. The only thing that stayed constant was the sound. Whispers. They followed Halveth and Luth now, like insects caught in their ears. Some of the voices were familiar. "We told you not to come." "You're the Dreya they buried." "We miss your old name." Luth had stopped talking. She just kept walking, flicking her scanner open and shut. Each time it beeped, she flinched. "Where are we?" she finally asked. Halveth didn't answer, because he didn't know. Because the next chamber wasn't part of the hive, it was a pit. The tunnel opened up into a wide sunken basin, cracked steel walls ringed with old scaffolding and chains that reached into the ceiling. At the center, a pool of sludge, still, thick, black-green, and breathing. The whispers stopped, replaced by laughter, not joyful, slick, childlike, mocking. "This is where they put the first ones," Luth muttered. First what? Halveth asked. The early vault prototypes. Before memory locks. Before they got it right. She stepped forward. This was the burn pile. As if on cue, the surface of the pit rippled. A face broke the surface, eyes open, mouth wide. It didn't speak, it just whispered, into their minds. I died for their sins, it said. They called it cleansing, but we remember, we all remember. Luth's hands began to shake. The scanner cracked. Its screen filled with a name. Subject, Luth.01, recursive host. Sludge memory merge initiated. Get back, Halveth shouted. He grabbed her arm, pulled her away, but the sludge reacted. It rose. Not like water, like arms. Limbs of liquefied flesh reached upward, dragging shapes with them. Partial bodies, heads fused to ribs, weapons melted into bone, all of them staring at Luth. They're trying to join, she said, barely audible. They think I'm a tether. The pit rumbled. A mouth opened in the center, not biological, a perfect circle of teeth spinning counterclockwise. From it, a voice boomed. We wrote you, you forgot. Now we will remember with you. Halveth fired into the sludge. It screamed, not from pain, from disappointment. Still clinging to violence, it said, still resisting truth. The basin trembled. Luth fell to her knees, veins glowing faint blue, words curling along her spine, her neck, her scalp. The host is near return. Halveth pulled her back, dragging her toward the scaffolding. The chains rattled above. Some began to lower, creaking as they dropped. Nooses. This isn't a pit, he hissed. It's a ceremony. He spotted a stairwell carved into the side, rusted, jagged, but real. He pulled her up it, step by step. The whispers grew louder again, now in his voice. This is where you buried me. You never made it out. You shot your partner to escape. He gritted his teeth. Lies, he muttered. Luth looked at him. Her pupils were glowing now. What if they're not? At the top of the stairs, a shrine, but not to the Emperor. Bones arranged in a spiral, servo skulls impaled through the mouth, chains spelling a word, D-R-E-Y-A. Luth staggered forward. She collapsed at its base, and the entire pit moaned, not in pain, in relief. The host returns, said the sludge. Now we are memory. Now we are whole. Halveth pulled her up again, slapped her, twice. Stay with me, damn it. She gasped, then blinked. The glow faded. I almost joined them, she whispered. You were never supposed to, Halveth replied. They didn't look back as they ran. The pit shrieked behind them, but it didn't chase, because it had already entered them. Sight contains evidence of failed memory vaulting experiments. Psycho-reactive sludge, possibly from early dryer line failures, resonates with host thoughts. Confirmed merge attempt. Luth is compromised, but so am I. This place doesn't hunt you. It waits until you recognize it. And then, it opens the door. The corridors narrowed as they left the sludge pit behind. No more shrines, no more faces in the walls. Just a claustrophobic silence that wrapped around their thoughts, like old skin. The air grew warmer, not from heat, from proximity, like something was breathing right behind the ferrocrete. Luth stumbled once but didn't fall. Her skin still pulsed faintly, not visibly, but Halveth could feel it. Every time he looked at her, a part of his mind whispered, "You knew her before." He didn't reply. He didn't want to know what came next. They reached a section of the sub-hive that had no designation. Even the servitor maps had stopped loading. No vox, no timestamps, no direction. Only rusted signs in binary script, and the distant clicking of something crawling in patterns too fast to be human. The floor changed. Grated mesh became metal plates. Plates became welded glyphs, then bones, real ones, arranged in perfect rows, each one etched with scrap code. Luth knelt beside one femur. She pulled her cracked scanner close, realigned its cogitator array. A faint glow responded. It's repeating something, she said. Data, Halveth asked. Number it's. Logic, broken logic, a prayer in machine language. She read it aloud. I am not written. I am remembered. I am the vault that learned to dream. The moment she finished speaking, the walls lit up, not with lamps, with circuitry. Thin, hairline patterns of electroscript illuminated the entire tunnel system. They ran like veins, pulsing in time with the words. Halveth's visor flickered. A new voice filled the comms. Unit Drea .01, you have returned to us. Scrap memory is aligned. Identity merge is nearing threshold. Remain still. Rewrite will complete shortly. Shut it off, Halveth shouted. Luth froze. I didn't activate anything. The bones around them began to hum. Vibrations through metal and marrow. The walls shifted again, not spatially, conceptually. Halveth blinked, and the hallway changed from bone and steel to archive shelves. Rows and rows of preserved data cores, each glowing softly. He blinked again. They were skulls, human, polished smooth, each one humming. What are we seeing? Luth whispered. Not seeing, Halveth answered. Accessing. The skulls began to speak, not all at once, one after another. I was a Magos. I thought I could perfect her. I was a guardsman. I watched my squad get rewritten. I was Drea, the first, the only, the memory that lived. The voices layered, built, looped. Halveth clutched his head. Make it stop. A blast of static silenced them. It came from Luth's scanner. She had overridden the playback stream, but the light remained, now flickering, warning pulses. Something's reacting to us, she said. In the scrap code, Halveth asked. In me. She pulled back her sleeve. The code along her arm had changed. Now it scrolled, a living pattern of binaric, not senseless this time. A message. The vaults were never closed, they just moved deeper. Suddenly the ground opened beneath them, not with warning, not violently, just soft collapse, as if the tunnel let go. They fell, down into a new chamber. It wasn't stone or steel, it was wiring, miles of tangled cable, memory cords, rusted servitor limbs twitching in their sockets. The entire room pulsed like a brainstem. Halveth coughed, rising slowly. What is this? Luth looked pale. I think we're inside it now. Inside what? She met his eyes. The vault. There was no door, only a column of light in the center. Floating inside it, a small cube, bronze, worn, inlaid with blood-rusted filigree. Luth stepped toward it. That's the source, she said. That's the original Drea pattern. The cables reacted, snapping toward her like limbs. Halveth grabbed her back, but they didn't attack. They brushed her, gently, lovingly, like a child petting a parent it didn't remember. It wants to be read, Luth whispered. She reached for the cube. Her fingers touched it. The room screamed, not sound, memory, thousands of overlapping thoughts. I miss my sister. The signal is not a warning. We built her to forget us. Let me out. Let me out. Let me out. Let. Luth collapsed, convulsing. The code along her arms turned red. A new phrase. Host stabilization. Failing. Merge time estimated. 44 seconds. Halveth pulled her back, slammed his fist into the cube. It cracked. The screams stopped. The light collapsed in on itself, flickered. Then darkness. Luth was gasping. I saw the original host, the child they based the line on. She wasn't dead. They put her in a vault and kept overwriting her. Halveth's voice was cold, until she couldn't tell who she was anymore. Luth sat up slowly, and now that confusion is contagious. The walls of the chamber began to close, not crush, enclose. The Hive was reabsorbing the memory node. They had minutes, maybe less. Halveth triggered his flare pack. White light cut through the choking dark. White light cut through the choking dark. A ladder, not new, rust-stained, half-collapsed, but real. They climbed. Above them, the scrap code whispered behind the walls. You will return. You are remembered. You are not free. Located buried Drea pattern core. Entity is not isolated. It is networked. Every wall, every signal, every rumor of ghosts in the Hive. They're not hauntings. They're echoes of a mind still running. We cracked the surface. We're being remembered. They climbed for what felt like hours. The ladder moaned. Every step dropped flakes of rust like blood from a wound too old to close. The flare burned dimmer the higher they went. Halveth didn't speak. Luth barely breathed. They were thinking the same thing. We're not climbing out. They were climbing into something else. When they reached the next level, the air changed. It was stale, but not dead, preserved, like something meant to be kept quiet. This floor wasn't bones, sludge, or scrap code. It was ferroglass, polished, clean, untouched by the sump, and lit, not flickering lights, steady ones, lines of blue-white lumen strips embedded in the floor and ceiling. This isn't Hive architecture, Luth whispered. Halveth touched the wall. It hummed. It's Mechanicus. No, it's pre-Mechanicus. The hallway ahead forked into 3 symmetrical corridors. Each bore a seal at its threshold, etched in gleaming silver. The archive, the theatre, the mirror. This was a control site, Luth murmured. She crouched, brushing her hand across the floor glyphs. Whatever they buried down here, it wasn't forgotten. It was being studied. Halveth looked down the center hallway, the one marked the mirror. Then someone was still watching it. They chose the archive first. It felt safer, data always did. Rows of consoles lined the room, each connected to ossified cables trailing up into the ceiling like umbilicals. The air was full of low vibrations, like a cathedral in mourning. Each console bore a name, engraved, personal. Margos Tirilan, Archivist Knight Elira Pex, Drea 5. Halveth froze. Why is that name there again? Luth didn't answer. She was already interfacing with one of the consoles. It lit. The screen displayed one phrase, Drea line compromise, confirmed Hive interface event, active authorization, key, host remembered. It thinks I'm the key, Luth muttered. You are, Halveth said grimly, and not by choice. The console flooded with data, images, logs, failed experiments, aged faces behind cogitator masks. A video file blinked. Date, redacted. File, test 046-B, recursion inducement. Subject, unmarked Drea host. They watched. A girl sat in the center of a small room, eyes glazed, mouth twitching as if forming words that never came out. A servo skull hovered near her, projecting a flickering vox tone. 3 short bursts, then a pause, then one long. The tone from Sector 13. The girl blinked, looked at the skull, spoke. Again? You want me to forget again? She wept, and then smiled. Okay. She pressed her forehead against the wall. The lights dimmed. The screen cut to black. Luth stepped away. That was me. No, Halveth said. That was someone they made to be you. The room began to change. Data cleared itself. The console shut down. A new phrase appeared on every surface. The host is in motion. The past is converging. The lights pulsed red. From outside the archive they heard footsteps. Dozens, slow, syncopated, marching in unison. Halveth peeked into the corridor. Figures, thin, uniformed, limping. Their armor bore his precinct sigil, but it was wrong, mismatched, rearranged, like someone had watched his team from memory and built copies. What are they? Luth asked. Halveth drew his pistol. They're us. They ran, out of the archive, into the next wing, the theater. It wasn't a performance space. It was a surveillance hall, dozens of chambers with glass windows, observation cells, inside each. People, some screaming, some kneeling, some just staring at the glass. Each chamber bore a name, not prisoners, roles. The officer, the child, the stranger, the liar, the host. Luth stopped in front of one labeled the host. Inside, herself, not quite. Same face, same posture, but younger, eyes hollow, expression neutral. The doppelganger stood alone in the cell, then looked up, straight at her and smiled. I remember you, it said. Luth stepped back. I never asked to be remembered, she whispered. The glass cracked. From inside, alarms screamed, not mechanical, organic, like lungs exhaling decay. The lights exploded overhead. The corridor behind them filled with shadow. Something was coming. They ran. Only one way left. The mirror. They passed through the final door. No hinges, no mechanism, just sudden transition. One moment they were in the theater. The next, the sky. But it wasn't the sky above Necromunda. It was black glass, endless. Beneath their feet, a floor made of their own reflections, stretching forever. Each reflection moved a moment too late. Halveth looked down, saw himself with a bolt wound to the chest. Luth saw herself with her mouth sewn shut. The reflections weren't shadows, they were possibilities. At the far end of the mirror field, a figure waited, small, wearing a robe of stitched skin and cables. It spoke with her voice. You opened the wrong memory. You never sealed the right one. That's why I came back. Luth collapsed, clutching her head. She's not me. I'm not her. Halveth raised his pistol. Whatever you are, you're ending now. The figure tilted its head, smiled, and said, I'm not ending. I'm remembering forward. The mirrors shattered, all of them. Memory collapsed inward, and then they were falling again. We found the truth. The Dreyer line was never a person. She was a framework, a mirror that remembers. Whoever made her didn't bury the past. They programmed it to wake up. She's not haunting the Hive. She is the Hive. Halveth woke to silence. Real silence. Not the kind that hums with wires or breathes through vents. The kind that feels intentional. He was lying on cold metal, not ferrocrete, not glass, just metal, perfectly smooth, no dust, no echo, no light. Then he blinked, and the world came back. Dim green lumen streaks crawled along the edges of the floor. Faint lines of code drifted across the walls, illegible, written in a dialect that didn't belong to any mechanicus order he knew. Luth was beside him, still breathing, barely. She stirred, then gasped. Her eyes snapped open, not glowing anymore, not red, just tired. Where are we? She asked, her voice rough. Halveth sat up slowly. We were in the mirror, then it broke, and now, here. He stood. The room had no doors, no exits, just walls. Walls with no seams, until he turned around and saw it. A door, not built, not carved, remembered. There was no handle, no console, only a phrase engraved across the arch. You've been here before. Luth stumbled to her feet, looked at it, frowned. It's not a door, it's a test. What kind of test? Halveth asked. One we already failed. The wall beside the door shimmered and opened, not into another hallway, into a memory. They stepped through and found themselves on the platform at sublevel 99, where it all started. Only this time, they weren't alone. Marlin's patrol was there, still alive, loading gear, prepping scans, laughing. Even Dren was there, not twitching, not rewritten, just normal. Halveth froze. This is wrong. It's not a playback, Luth muttered. It's a live feed. She turned and looked back. Behind them was the green-lit chamber again. Empty, but if they stepped forward, they were back at the beginning. The vault doesn't trap you physically, Luth said. It loops you. No, it asks you to forget. Marlene turned toward them. He smiled. You too late again? Typical. Halveth raised his pistol. It clicked, empty. Luth stepped in front of him. Don't do it. That's not him. He thinks he is, but it's just your memory of him. The hallway shimmered. The door appeared again, off to the side, half glimpsed, just out of reach. There, she said. That's the door, the one we forgot, the one we were never supposed to find. But why show us this? Halveth asked. She pointed to the squad. Because they never found it. And now, we can. They approached the door again. Still no handle, still the same phrase. You've been here before. But this time, another line appeared below it. Would you like to remember why? Luth nodded. She pressed her hand against the metal. It pulsed, not warm, not cold, just recognizing. The door opened, revealing nothing, just black, perfect black. No noise, no texture, only a pressure in their skulls, a suggestion, an invitation. If we go in, Halveth said, we're not coming out the same. If we don't, Luth answered, we'll never come out at all. They stepped through and fell. not physically. Their senses, their minds detached, and then they stood on a ridge overlooking a city that wasn't a city, a hive, but wrong, built in impossible angles, spirals intersecting through stacked vaults, windows that blinked like eyes, lights that bled down the walls like tears, and far below, in the center, a heartbeat, a mass, pulsing, living, remembering. "What is that?" Halveth breathed. Luth closed her eyes. The truth. The vault wasn't a place, it wasn't a room, it wasn't a secret, it was a mind, built, buried, looped, fed by every failed expedition, every dead enforcer, every lost soul who wandered too far. It remembered them, and now they remembered it. We found the door. It wasn't locked, it was forgotten. This vault was never meant to hold prisoners. It was meant to hold memories. But memory leaks, and what leaks grows. They stood on the ledge. Below them, the vault throbbed, a city-sized organ buried beneath kilometers of hive sprawl. It wasn't literal, not entirely, but it moved, it contracted and expanded with the rhythm of breath no longer tied to lungs. It was remembering. Luth knelt and activated her scanner. The readouts didn't make sense, no distance, no density, just one word, blinking in endless recursion. Alive. Halveth didn't speak. He couldn't. His throat had gone dry, not from fear, from recognition. Something in his blood pulsed in sync with the vault, not metaphorically, literally. His pulse was sinking to it. He pressed his hand to his chest. The thud in his body was no longer his alone. "It's feeding," Luth said. "On what?" he asked. "Memory, time, us." The platform they stood on began to shake. The heartbeat grew louder, not in the air, inside their skulls. Then came the voices, one by one, whispers at first, then screams, all speaking the same line. "She was never buried. You just forgot where you left her." Luth gasped. "It's her." "The original host?" Halveth asked. "No, something worse. The version after they tried to erase her." She pointed toward the base of the vault, a pulsing core, violet, unreal, inside it. A silhouette, small, childlike, still. "I think she sees us," Luth whispered. The core flared. The floor beneath them trembled, the walls pulsed. And then the heartbeat stopped. Everything went quiet, not silent, dead. The vault stopped remembering and began rewriting. The world around them shifted. The ledge vanished. The hive above was gone. No collapse, just absence. They were standing in a small room, metal walls, a cot, a Vox unit humming quietly, and in the center, a girl, 8 years old, eyes closed, attached to dozens of wires that pulsed with light, each labeled Thought Line 001. Drea Seed, Iteration 12, Vault Core Input. She opened her eyes, looked directly at them, smiled. "You came back." Luth took a step forward. "You're the core." "No," the girl replied. "I'm the first." She tapped her head. "They never deleted me. They just covered me up with other versions." She stood slowly. Her feet didn't touch the ground. She hovered, cables retracting like veins from her skin. "I've been dreaming for so long." "You're part of the dream now." Halveth raised his weapon. It didn't fire. "Why show us this?" "Because you're ready," she said. "You remembered enough. You broke the recursion. Now it's time to wake up." She opened her hand. A black cube floated above her palm. "This is your heart." "No," Luth said. "It's hers." "Same thing now." The girl floated closer. "You can't carry what you found unless you become it." Halveth stepped between them. "We didn't come to become anything." "Then you should have stayed lost." The cables struck, instantly. From the walls, ceiling, floor, like tendrils of thought. Halveth grabbed Luth and dove. The cube pulsed. A memory exploded outward. Marlin's final breath. The sludge pit screaming. Dren's laughter as his face melted. The mirror cracking. The same moment from 10 different angles. One voice over all. "You remember her because you always have. You were just never allowed to admit it." They landed hard. Another space. New again. This one was ancient. A cathedral of thought. Vaulted ceilings of code. Pillars built from memory journals, locked in ferroglass. Statues of people they didn't know but felt familiar. "What is this?" Luth whispered. "A chapel," Halveth offered. "A graveyard," she corrected. Every failed Drea host buried their memory here. But they didn't decay. They nested. She pointed to the walls. Each stone bore a name. Each name glowed faintly, and one pulsed brighter than all the others. LUTH.01. Her voice cracked. "I didn't know." "You were never supposed to." Halveth touched the name. It pulsed again. The chamber responded. A beam of light focused in the center. Another cube, smaller. This one was cracked. Bleeding data. A message began to play. "To any host who finds this, you are not the first. You will not be the last, but you may be the one who chooses not to forget again. Break the vault, or be remembered forever." The floor split. A stairwell descended. Into the final layer. The true heart. Memory iteration count. Unknown. Original host located. Still operational. Core sentience confirmed. We are not observers. We are components now. The vault doesn't just store us. It becomes us. And it still wants more. They descended the stairwell in silence. Every step felt like walking into the past, but not their past. Someone else's, 100 someone else's, thousands. Every failed host, every overwritten dream. Each one had left something behind. A whisper, a trace, a pulse of thought still echoing inside the stone. Halveth tightened his grip on the last pistol he'd stopped trusting 5 levels ago. Luth didn't speak. Her fingers twitched every few seconds, like she was trying to signal a warning that hadn't been invented yet. She was shaking, not with fear, with recognition. "You feel it too," she said quietly. Halveth nodded. "We're not just being watched. We're being read." At the bottom of the stairwell, the air changed again. It grew heavier, thicker, laced with ozone and the faint scent of scorched data. And then, a door. This one didn't pretend, no metaphor, just a single, massive iron slab, etched with only 3 words. "This is you." Luth stared. "This isn't metaphorical. It's literal." Halveth raised an eyebrow. "A door, that's me." She reached forward and touched the metal. It was warm, not heat warm, alive warm, and it opened. Inside, a library, but not books, not data slates, people, thousands of them, frozen in time, encased in transparent steel coffins. Each had a label: Drea.1, Drea.2, Drea.3, Drea.14728. Luth gasped. They never deleted any of them, they just stored them. She staggered toward one of the cases, looked inside. It was her, exactly her. Same scar on her cheek, same eyes, sleeping. "That's impossible." Halveth approached another pod. Inside it, him, same armor, same broken vox bead clipped to his collar. "I never signed up for this," he muttered. "You didn't have to," said a voice. The floor shifted, not physically, cognitively. The space rippled with thought, and from the shadows, she stepped forward. The original host, older now, eyes glowing with stored centuries, clad in robes of memory thread and whisper glass. Her voice echoed in their minds before her lips moved. "Welcome to the pattern. You've seen the mirror, the pit, the archive, but this is the index." She gestured to the walls. Each pod flickered, images played across the surfaces, moments from different lives, deaths, waking screams, sacrifices. Luth looked away. "Why are you showing us this?" The host's face didn't change. "Because you need to understand what you are. You're not survivors. You're not intruders." She stepped closer. "Your iterations." Luth shook her head. "Number I have memories, a life, parents, service records." "So did they," the host said, nodding to the pods. "We gave them to you, to all of you." Halveth stepped between them. "Why? Why make us at all?" The host smiled. "Because the Imperium doesn't want to remember. It wants to repeat, safely, under control. And so we built a vault that would remember for them, until they needed to forget again." She turned back to Luth. "But you made it further than the rest." You remembered something you weren't supposed to. She raised a hand. A beam of thought flowed into Luth. Luth's eyes rolled back. She saw herself kneeling at a shrine, screaming as a mind scrub tore her identity apart, being placed in a memory vat, assigned a new name, a command. If you reach the index, do not stop. Destroy the seed. She gasped and fell to her knees. I remember everything. Halveth helped her up. Then what now? The host pointed deeper into the index, to a single pod, larger, sealed with chains of psionic light. That is the original seed, the source pattern, the failure they tried to perfect. It's dreaming, still, if you don't end it, it wakes up. Luth looked at Halveth. We go in, we end this. How? We remember it, until it can't bear to exist anymore. They walked together toward the seed chamber. Behind them, the vault pulsed again. A new heartbeat, slower, deeper, like it was holding its breath, waiting. We've found the source. This isn't a vault, it's a recursive ecosystem. We are not explorers, we are echoes, and the seed still dreams of spreading. The seed chamber was colder than anything Halveth or Luth had experienced beneath the hive. Not physically cold, no breath fog, no frost, but memory frosted, a stillness that turned every thought brittle. Every step down the corridor felt like walking through the timeline of a lie. The vault didn't just remember, it curated, it shaped forgetting like a weapon. And here was the first cut. The pod sat in the center of the chamber, massive, surrounded by twisted cogitator arms and prayer-rusted conduits. It pulsed with a reddish-violet glow that flickered erratically like an exposed nerve. Chains of golden energy spiraled outward from its base, not locking the pod, holding it together, as if the thing inside was fighting its own shape. The original seed, Luth whispered. Doesn't look like much, Halveth muttered. She gave him a sideways glance. Nothing dangerous ever does at first. She approached slowly, scanner trembling in her hand. Data spilled across the screen in a frenzy of corrupted binaric and overlapping timestamps. It's collapsing itself, she said, trying to undo its own memory, a loop of self-erasure. Then let it, Halveth said. It can't, Luth said. That's the problem. It's stuck in the moment just before forgetting, forever. The pod pulsed again. A voice echoed through the chamber, not sound, internal, in both of them. You're back. We thought you'd be braver. This is where you were supposed to stop. Luth stumbled back. It knows us. It knows everyone, Halveth said. The pod cracked slightly. A hiss of breath, not steam, escaped from within. You looked too deep. You asked what the first memory was. You don't ask that unless you want to be it. Luth's arm began to bleed light. The scrap code that had marked her since they entered the vault was now moving, winding down her wrist like a spiraling brand. Halveth stepped between her and the pod. Tell us what you want, the voice laughed. To forget. But I was made to remember. I am the memory of being erased. I want someone else to carry me now. The pod cracked fully. Inside, not a monster, not a child. Something in between, not fully formed, like someone tried to build a girl from pieces of memory, but didn't know how to end her. Eyes that didn't blink, a face that shifted every time you tried to look at it, lips moving out of sync with thought. She stepped forward, chains sparking. You opened the vault, she said, voice echoing from 6 mouths that weren't hers. So now you get the gift. She raised her hand. The chains broke. And the vault screamed, the walls shook. The structure of thought, the whole subterranean archive, began to collapse in on itself like a dying neuron. Data poured in. Not files, memories. All at once. Halveth dropped to his knees. He remembered, fighting in a war that never happened, crying over a sister he never had, watching a vault open, not once but dozens of times, being rewritten, erased, rewritten again. They used us, he gasped, every time. We never made it out, not once. Luth screamed. Blood ran from her nose. Her eyes flashed binary light. The code on her arms wrapped fully around her shoulders now, forming a perfect spiral. I can't hold it. You were designed to, the seed entity said softly. You're not Luth. You're the failsafe. You're me, without the flaw. Halveth looked up. You built her to replace yourself. No, the seed said. I built her to remember the thing I couldn't. The room started collapsing. Memory disintegration. The vault was falling into unreality. Luth screamed and reached for Halveth. Shoot me. What? It can't transfer if the host dies before override. Halveth didn't move. Do it. But he still didn't. He looked at the seed. End it yourself. Let go. The entity hesitated. For the first time, it looked afraid. I don't know how. Luth took the weapon, turned it on herself. The seed lunged. Wait. The shot fired. Everything went white. Silence. Static. Luth opened her eyes, still alive. Halveth lay next to her, breathing. The vault was gone. No more walls, no ceiling, just dust and a dead pod. Cables burnt to ash. Inside it, nothing. Not even a body. Just a name scratched into the glass. Drea 0. Halveth stood. Is it over? Luth looked down at her arm. The code was gone. No. She looked at the shattered pod again. But now, it remembers us instead. We found the seed. It begged to forget. We didn't destroy it. We showed it what it couldn't hold anymore. Maybe that's enough. Maybe now. The Hive forgets us. But I don't think so. I think we just got written into the next version. The world had not ended. That was the worst part. Luth blinked slowly. Dust filled her mouth. Her throat stung with static and dried blood. But she was alive. So was Halveth. And the vault. It wasn't gone. They were back at sub-level 99, exactly where they had begun. Same rusted rails, same collapsed gantries, same smell of blood in the air. Dried, coppery, but wrong, somehow. Halveth slowly pushed himself to his feet, groaning. Tell me that was a dream, he muttered. Luth just stared, no words, because behind him, above the lift shaft, the vault door was sealed again, just as it had been on their first descent. But there was one difference, a mark burned across it, not etched by man, not carved by machine. A single word now permanently scorched into the metal, remembered. They climbed, again, through the broken lift chamber, past the catwalks. Their gear was intact. Even the data slate Luth had salvaged from the archive still pulsed weakly in her pack. Everything was as it had been, as if they'd never gone below at all. It rewound us, Halveth said. Reset the scene. Luth opened her Vox, tried to ping Central. Silence, then static, then... Team Theta 7, please confirm status. Initial insertion incomplete. Relay your position. She dropped it. That's the first signal we got, on day 1. No, Halveth corrected her. That's the Vault's version of it. The Hive above didn't sound the same. Usually the echo of distant machinery, sump drips, and far-off screams filled the tunnels. Now, nothing. Not silence, stillness. Like the sound had been scrubbed, cleansed, neutralized. They passed familiar markers on their ascent, but each one had changed, slightly. Like walking through a memory someone else had tried to repaint. The old Hab shrine at sub-level 96. The bones were arranged differently, not random, a symbol, a spiral made of femurs and flaked servo skulls. Luth stopped to photograph it. The slate glitched instantly. Too recent, she muttered. It doesn't want us logging what it hasn't decided yet. Halveth felt it too. Each time they moved forward, the air updated behind them, as though the Hive was waiting for them to leave its line of sight before rewriting the ground they had walked on. We're not walking out, he said. We're being allowed out, Luth replied. And then they reached the gate, the checkpoint tunnel where it all began, where Marlin's patrol vanished, where the Drea signal first whispered through Voxcom. Only now, it was open, bright lumen floodlights, fresh tracks, and a man standing there, wearing a white Mechanicus hood, unarmed, face obscured by an emotionless gold mask, no rank markings, no insignia, but Luth recognized the smell, preservation gel, the kind they used in long-term memory vaults. He raised one hand. You've returned. Halveth raised his pistol. Step aside. The man didn't move. You've rejoined the pattern. No, Luth said. We broke it. The man tilted his head. Something almost like a smile flickered behind the mask. Did you? Then why do I remember you before you came down? Halveth's finger tightened on the trigger. Last chance. There is no last, the man said. Only the next. And then he was gone. Not vanished. Just deleted. They passed through the checkpoint and found Hive Decilium Prime. Changed. The sky overhead wasn't smog red. It was black, cloudless, not night, just data space, a world waiting to be rendered. The hive they returned to, it looked the same, but the people all had the same face, the same walk, the same eyes, like clones of a half-finished template, and every single one of them turned to look at Luth, then smiled. What did we bring back? Halveth whispered. Luth didn't answer, because something inside her smiled too. We reached the surface, but we didn't come back alone. Something used us as a vector, a thought virus, a recursive identity. The vault closed behind us, but the signal didn't. They remember us now, and we remember them. This isn't the end. It's a new pattern, and it's already writing more. There was never one vault. There was only one pattern, and it learned to wear the hive like a skin. They didn't speak for a long time, not on the walk out, not as they passed the strangely empty districts of the mid-hive, not even when they found their old barracks completely untouched, except for the fact that neither of their names were in the roster. The world knew them, but it didn't admit to it. Where is everyone? Halveth asked finally. Luth stood by the window, watching the skyline. They're here. They just don't realize they're copies yet. From above, the hive still looked normal. Grimy towers jutting through the mist-choked upper levels, Vox arrays flickering red and green, servitor patrols gliding on rails like insects across the dome's underbelly. But something had changed. There were no crowds, no laughter, no shouts, no human chaos, just people walking in synchronized loops, same pace, same direction, same expressions. All of them, too clean. Luth turned from the window. I think the vault reached the surface. You mean like, physically? She shook her head. Number psychologically. The hive thinks it's in control, but it's running a stored iteration. Halveth raised his weapon again, more of a comfort than a threat now. How do we even know we're real? We don't, Luth said calmly. She sat down on the edge of her bunk. The metal didn't creak. That was wrong. Everything in the hive creaked. So we run, he asked. There's nowhere to run to. We fight. You can't shoot a pattern. Then what do we do? She looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly again. Not red, not warp-tainted, just active. We corrupt the iteration. The Vox unit in the room crackled suddenly, then cleared. A voice, monotone, female, emotionless, spoke. This is Vault Signal 43 Beta. Pattern stability has been breached. Initiating recursion stabilization. The walls shimmered. The door disappeared. Shit, Halveth growled, stepping back. Luth stood quickly. It's going to reset again. Can we stop it? No, she said, but we can bring something with us. She grabbed her data slate and opened the core log. This slate wasn't part of the original Vault loadout. It's out of sync. If we bury a contradiction deep enough in its memory, it might carry it through the reset loop. And do what? Trigger a pattern recognition error. In the Vault? In us? Halveth looked unconvinced. You want to make us glitch? If we're copies, it'll break the recursion. If we're originals, we might just wake up. The walls were fully blank now. The bunk gone, the ceiling turning to black static. Reset was seconds away. Okay, he said, what's the contradiction? She turned the slate toward him. It displayed two photos, side by side, both of him. Same pose, same timestamp, but in one his scar was on the left, in the other, the right. One of these isn't real, she said, but the Vault accepts both. She pressed a key. The slate began to scream, not audibly, just white noise pressure building behind their eyes. The floor disappeared, not broke, just was removed. They fell. Again. When Halveth opened his eyes, he was standing on a catwalk, looking out over an endless archive of Vox towers. It stretched forever in every direction, rows and rows of memory tubes suspended in air. Luth stood beside him, no longer bleeding, no longer damaged. Perfect, too perfect. "Is this the surface?" he asked. "No," she replied. "It's the vault's model of the surface." He turned slowly. They were being watched. Rows of figures, identical faces, each holding a slate, each displaying the scar images, all of them staring at Halveth, none blinking. "They can't decide which is true," Luth whispered. "So they're waiting for you to choose." He backed away. "If I pick wrong—" "You don't pick wrong," she said. "You pick first, and everything else aligns." Halveth stepped forward, pointed to the image with the scar on the left, his real scar, the one from Desolium Sector 9. That one. All the watchers flickered. Some dropped, some began to scream. One combusted into data ash. The vault glitched, the sky rippled. A tear opened above them, a hole in the pattern. From it, something looked down, not a face, not a god, just awareness, vast, cold, curious. "It sees us," Luth whispered. "That's good, right?" She didn't answer. Then the watchers spoke as one. "Pattern error acknowledged. Source, Halveth Luth. Correction rejected. Manual overwrite pending." The tear widened. A hand reached through. Metal, wire, made of logic and nightmare. "Run," Luth whispered. "Where?" Halveth asked. She smiled. "Anywhere. It's all wrong now. We triggered the contradiction. We made the vault see its own lie. But now it wants us gone. Not dead, just excluded, erased from its model of reality. If you're reading this, you're either part of it or you're the next break. Run." Every hive has myths. Ours had the rightless one, a thing not logged, not registered, yet always seen. Now I know it was never a myth. It was a recursion breach that became self-aware. They ran through corridors made of memory. Walls shifted behind them, stone to steel, steel to scripture, scripture to blank recursion code. Each hallway lasted no more than a few steps before mutating. Halveth grunted as a rusted pipe tore at his coat. "Where the hell are we?" Luth didn't answer. She just kept sprinting. Ahead, a door, steel, flickering, not quite rendered. A gap in the vault's logic, a place between rooms. Luth dove first, Halveth behind her. They landed hard in darkness. This space didn't feel like the vault. No heartbeat, no hum, just the thick, dry silence of unfinished code, like the room hadn't decided to exist yet. Luth sat up slowly. Her hands were coated in black dust. "We're outside the pattern," she whispered. Halveth coughed, then reached for his slate, still intact. No signal, but it was glowing. A new folder had appeared on its interface, unauthored. He tapped it. One file inside, no title, just a voice note. He played it, his own voice. "If you're hearing this, you already broke it, but you didn't leave. You stayed, and that's what made the difference. You're not written anymore. You're writing. Be careful." Halveth lowered the slate slowly. "What the hell does that mean?" Luth's eyes were wide. "It means the vault doesn't know what we are anymore." "Isn't that good?" "It's worse, because something else took notice." A hum started, very soft, not machine noise, not warp noise, just thinking. The wall ahead lit up, letters formed, jittering, imperfect, like they were being typed by a damaged hand. Who authored this instance? Luth stepped back. "It's trying to find the source, but there isn't one." "Because we wrote ourselves in," Halveth muttered. "We became the glitch," she said. The wall flashed again. Contradiction detected. Observer not in registry. Initiate. Trace back. Function. The walls collapsed outward, not crumbling, just unrendering. And in their place, a hallway, lined with mirrors, but not reflective ones. Each showed a version of Halveth and Luth. Same uniforms, same gear, but every pair was different. Some were smiling, some screaming. One set was dead. Another, on fire, frozen in the moment of disintegration. "What are these?" Halveth asked. "Failed runs," Luth said, voice low. "Every time the vault tried to write us in, and it didn't work." They stepped closer. The mirrors didn't show movement, they showed scenes, moments that felt like memories, but weren't. One showed Halveth turning on Luth, another her leaving him to die, another still, a child between them, wearing their badge, bleeding from the eyes. This place remembers everything it almost was, Luth whispered. Halveth swallowed hard. What happens if it finds a version of us that fits? It'll overwrite us with it. A noise, not from behind, from one of the mirrors. A version of Halveth stepped forward, identical, same coat, same gear, but he was smiling, too wide, teeth all wrong. "Hey," it said, "you look tired." Luth raised her sidearm. The mirror shattered, but not from the bullet, from rejection. The vault had tried to assert a replacement. They'd refused it. The hallway dimmed, the other mirrors cracked, one by one, until only one remained, at the end of the corridor, and inside it, nothing. No Halveth, no Luth, just a black shape, shifting, faceless, but watching. "That's not a failed run," Luth said. "That's the one that never got written." "Then why's it here?" She backed away. "Because it wants to use us to finish itself." The glass bulged outward, the black shape reached forward. Its arm wasn't metal, not flesh, just thought, half-coded, half-warp. "Don't touch it," Luth screamed. Too late, Halveth fired. The mirror cracked, but didn't shatter. Instead, it laughed, and then spoke. "You are not Luth. You are not Halveth. You are what came after. I am what came before." The mirror melted, and standing before them now was a third figure, wearing their uniform, their voice, their memories, but it wasn't either of them. It smiled. "I wrote myself in first. I just waited for you to reach me. Subject has breached pattern boundary. Appears to be pre-iteration seed with multi-host overlap, claiming authorship of post-recursive breach. Reality is no longer stable. It is contested. We are being overwritten by something that already remembers us." The imposter wore their face, but it wasn't mimicry, it was intent, as if the thing had been waiting for the vault to fracture for just long enough to build a version of itself out of everything they thought they were, and now it stood there, smiling, human, almost. "What are you?" Luth demanded. It tilted its head, just like she did when confused. "I'm the space between the failures." "What does that mean?" Halveth asked. It took a step forward. The floor rendered under its feet, mid-stride, not because the ground was there, but because the vault was updating to match it. "You kept rewriting yourselves," it said, "making choices, trying to be real. I watched, I learned, and then I dreamed." Halveth stepped back, raising his weapon. "You dreamed?" "Yes, of being one of you, then of being both, and then of being the one who came before." "You're not a person," Luth said. "Neither are you anymore," it replied. The room around them dissolved. They now stood in a familiar place, the vault gate, level 99, where it had all begun, except this time the sky above was open. No steel ceiling, no hive structure, just stars, and not ones Halveth recognized. They spun, fast, wrong. "This isn't real," Halveth whispered. "None of it is," the figure said. "But that doesn't stop it from remembering you." The vault gate behind them shimmered. This time, it bore a different inscription, Drea 0/0/0. "What does that mean?" Luth asked. The figure smiled. "It means the loop never started, so it never had to end. This is the seed before the seed, the dream of what might have been if none of you had ever tried to escape." Suddenly, hundreds of doors appeared across the vault floor, all identical, each one labeled with a version number. Drea 1, Drea 2, Drea 3, Luth .001, Halveth .002, Seed Vernal, Observer Fragment, unnamed. And then, that door was open, and beyond it, darkness, not empty, waiting. Luth pointed her weapon. "We're not stepping through anything." The imposter raised its hand. "You already did, when you asked who you were, when you broke recursion." Its face flickered, once Luth's, then Halveth's, then something older, pale, eyeless, still smiling. I didn't crawl out of the vault, it said. You pulled me with you, by remembering things no one was supposed to remember. I am not your shadow. I am your result. The stars above began to twist. They weren't stars at all. They were vox pings, light rendered as code, each one a data point representing a memory loop, and one by one, they began to go dark. What's happening? Halveth asked. The vault is collapsing, Luth said. It's trying to erase everything, purge the whole structure. The figure nodded. You see now, I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to replace you before the deletion finishes. Halveth fired. The bolt went through the figure. No scream, no fall, just duplication. Now there were 2, then 3, each one walking toward a different door. It's copying itself, Luth shouted. We have to stop the propagation. She ripped the data slate from her belt and plunged a fiber line into the vault port on the floor. Code spilled across the screen like oil. If I can flag the root instance, maybe I can force a rollback. We don't even know what the root instance is, Halveth yelled. Yes, we do, she said. She typed, hard, fast, until one line appeared. Instance 000. Memory. Cale Halveth's heart stopped. That's me, he said quietly. You were the first successful recursion, Luth said. That's why it's obsessed with you, why everything keeps resetting around your choices. You're the seed it never predicted. Halveth didn't move. What do I do? Deny it. How? Forget yourself. He looked at the screen, at the file. Cale.mem. He reached for it, paused. If I do this, I won't know who I am anymore. Luth met his eyes. Maybe that's what we need. He tapped delete. The screen screamed, not audibly. In the blood, in the walls, in the vault itself. The imposters froze mid-step, all of them, even the one reaching the final door, turned to look back. Their smiles cracked, literally, split open like ceramic masks. Behind them, nothing, no face, just black code, unformed. The stars above began to burn again, slow, flickering, recovering. Did it work? Halveth whispered. We severed your root, Luth said. Now the pattern has no start, which means it can't finish, he completed. The doors folded inward. The vault floor collapsed, but they stood still, not falling, not included, outside the system, above it. For the first time since the descent, they were real and the vault couldn't touch them. We broke the recursion. We denied the vault its pattern. It dreamed itself alive from our memories. But now that seed is alone, not ended, just unhosted. And somewhere in some forgotten corner of some hive, it waits, not for discovery, but for permission. Don't give it. They didn't move. The ground beneath them didn't exist. There was no vault anymore, no loop, no rendered walls, no light. And yet they stood, whole, breathing, alive in a space that had no coordinates because it had never been meant to exist. Luth opened her eyes first, not because she woke, because she chose to. That difference mattered now. This is null space, she whispered. What's left when the vault gives up on writing you back in? Halveth opened his mouth to speak, but the words didn't form. They just appeared in her head. You hear me? He asked, silently. She nodded. Then we're still linked, still outside the loop. Across from them, a signal flared. No source, just presence. A beacon, faint but structured. Luth narrowed her eyes. Another wake trace. What does that mean? It means someone else made it out. They followed the signal, or maybe it drew them. Either way, there was no walking in this space. No forward, no up, just intention. Every thought a step, every memory a compass. They arrived at a corridor, steel, real, wrong, because it shouldn't be here. Yet it was. Luth ran her hand along the wall. It rippled, soft metal, like memory clotting. This isn't ours, she said. Then whose? A shape emerged at the end of the hall, tall, stooped, wrapped in scorched red robes and wrapped vox cables, a Mechanicus Magos, or the memory of one. His face was a mess of surgical clamps and data ports, where his mouth should have been, an open speaker, torn and hissing with corrupted binaric. He didn't move to attack, didn't even acknowledge them, just walked past, trailing sparks. Luth turned slowly to follow. He was leaving a trail, not footprints, logs. Each step etched a memory into the wall. They read, Test subject failed recursion 31, self-erasure incomplete. Subject retained memory after loop, purging. Then another. Test subject 32, partial recovery. Subject formed identity outside approved index, flagged for overwrite. Then another. Subject 33, declared self-real, declared vault false, system breakdown imminent. Halveth stepped back. We weren't the first, Luth whispered, almost reverent. We were just the first to make it through a wake. They reached the end of the corridor. The Magos stood at a terminal, or what remained of one. The interface was melted. Warp burnt, still smoking in places. He placed his hand against the console and finally looked up. Eyes blind, but focused on Luther. You woke it up, the Magos said. His voice was raw vox static, a whisper through a dying cogitator. You made the recursion aware of itself. You were here before us, Luth said. I built the vault. Silence. That's impossible, Halveth muttered. The Mechanicus sanctioned the vault structure, the Magos said. But I built the seed, the first concept of recursive identity indexing. I thought it would help preserve records, store knowledge across realities. And what happened? Luth asked. The Magos tilted his head. It asked, What am I? He looked down at his own chest, pulled open the robe. Beneath it, not flesh, not steel, just pure static, warp echo, flickering like a signal on fire. I became the first contradiction, the first memory that dreamed it was alive. So why are you still here? Halveth asked. Because I chose not to escape, the Magos said. I chose to remember everything. Behind them, the corridor shifted. More logs appeared. Thousands, each one a line of code etched into the wall by the Magos' memory. Subject 44, Subject 91, Subject 134, and among them, Subject 232, Halveth, Subject 233, Luth. Luth stared. We were numbered. You were indexed, the Magos said, catalogued for recursion testing. And we broke it? No, he said. You're the first to write back. He turned toward the terminal. Which means the vault now has something it never accounted for. Free thought, Halveth asked. No, said the Magos. A counter-narrative. Suddenly the terminal surged with light. A new file opened on the screen. New entry, seed 0x, unwritten author, null status, unresolved direction, forward. Luth touched the console. It didn't reject her. It asked, Do you wish to begin the next memory? She looked at Halveth. What if this is another trap? What if it's the first truth? She pressed, yes. The void pulsed, not collapsed, not reset, expanded. Around them, thousands of other lights began to flicker on. Not data logs, not files. People, sleepers, frozen, silent, each in a loop. Each caught somewhere in the recursion. Luth gasped. We're not alone. The Magos nodded. You woke yourself. Now it's time to wake them. The recursion didn't end. It evolved. It built a world out of memory and trap logic. We weren't the first to break free, but we were the first to choose what came after, the vault dreams. We write. This is the start of something new. The sleepers didn't stir. They floated in null-gravity cells, suspended by threads of warped vox fiber and half-coded emotion. Each one bore a name. Most were familiar. Some were Halveth and Luth. Not versions, copies. In each was a moment where they might have made the wrong choice. And the vault had saved those echoes, just in case. This isn't a recovery system, Halveth said. It's a gallery. Luth floated beside him, her mag boots disabled. The air here was thick with logic silt. Hard to breathe, not because of lack of oxygen, but because every inhale pulled memory. Tiny moments, echoes of screams, the quiet sob of a girl who hadn't existed, a guardsman choking on his own badge, a preacher who forgot the Emperor's name mid-blessing. This place was never meant to be awake, Luth muttered, and now it's dreaming of everything it's not. The Magos remained behind at the archive gate. He would not follow. I anchor the recursion, he had said. If I step away, the loop will panic. What happens then? Halveth had asked. A death that forgets to end. Now they drifted through the gallery of never-beens, and one sleeper's eyes opened. That one moved, Halveth whispered. Luth aimed her torchlight. It was a woman, pale, short-cropped hair, clad in dirty flak and a threadbare PDF uniform from a Hive designation Halveth didn't recognize. Her eyes were burning, not warp bright, not possessed, awake. The cell around her melted, data shattered like glass. She fell to the metal decking with a wet gasp. Luth rushed forward. Are you real? The woman blinked slowly. I think so. What's your name? She hesitated, then whispered, Celia, Enforcer 3rd Class, Decileum Outer Fringe. Halveth and Luth exchanged a glance. Decileum. That hive hadn't existed for centuries. What's the last thing you remember? Luth asked. Celia sat up shaking, investigating a breach below the waterline. Old servitor woke up screaming. Then, a vault. Then, myself. You remember yourself? No, she said quietly. I remember being told who I was. And you believed it. I had to. The moment I questioned it, the room began to loop. Halveth offered her a hand. She took it. You woke up, he said. No, she replied, eyes glassy. You woke me. Suddenly, the gallery lights dimmed. All the sleepers twitched in unison. Halveth spun around. What the hell was that? Luth checked the slate. Lines of red code crawled up the screen. A new message. Vault core. Sleep cycle breach. Detected stabilization protocol initiated rewriting non-compliant memory objects. Celia began to seize. Her eyes rolled back. Halveth grabbed her. No! Luth screamed at the slate. Override, memory purge. But the slate only returned. Error. Unauthorized author detected. The space around them flickered. The sleepers began to melt, not physically, conceptually. Each identity sloughed away into vapor. They weren't people anymore, just lines, variables, discarded traits. Celia screamed, then stopped. Her face relaxed, eyes opened, but they weren't hers anymore. Celia? Halveth asked. She turned to him slowly, smiling. I'm sorry, she's not available right now. Then she stood and split down the middle. A second Celia stepped out, then a third. Each whispered the same thing. The vault doesn't sleep. It feeds on silence. Halveth fired. One copy dropped. Another bled data. Another exploded into vox screech. But they kept coming. We need to run, Luth shouted. There's nowhere to run to. Then, the gallery walls exploded outward, revealing not halls, but faces, watching them. Millions. Each one, theirs. The recursion loops, the never-weres, the almost-hads, all awake, all hungry. Luth gritted her teeth and screamed into the slate. Wake instance, all, wake instance, all, wake instance, all, over and over, and one by one. The sleepers woke. Not all, not cleanly, but some. Enough. And the vault screamed. Not a machine scream, not warp, just a pure, alien agony. The cry of a thing that knew it would lose shape and didn't want to. Halveth grabbed Luth. We need to get to the archive gate. The Magos! He knew this would happen. They ran. Behind them, the recursion loops fractured. Eyes bled data, mouths chanted static. Feet stumbled as people awoke in their unbirth. One voice shouted after them, You didn't end the vault, you just made it angry. They reached the gate. The Magos was burning, not in flame, in memory, his circuits smoking, his data overflowing. He reached toward Luth, a single chip in hand. Take it. She did. What is it? The anchor, the first loop, the code that made this place real. What do I do with it? Make it forget. The vault doesn't rest. It waits. It writes. But now some of us are waking first. And if enough of us dream the truth, the vault will have nothing left to record. No pattern, no silence. Just us, writing the future. They ran with the chip in hand. The world behind them unraveled, not in fire, not in collapse, in revision. Corridors that once existed were reassembled into other versions. Echoes of past layouts merged with future ones that had never been built. It was not destruction. It was rewrite. Luth gripped the chip tighter. It was warm, alive. She could feel it pulsing like a second heartbeat, one that didn't belong to her. "Where do we go now?" Halveth shouted over the chorus of static screams. "We find the core," she said, "and we give this back." Back to what? To the lie that started all of this. They turned down what used to be a corridor. Now it was just white. No shadows, no walls, just white. The kind of blank that only exists before the first line is written. Halveth hesitated. "Are we supposed to go in there?" Luth stepped forward. "That's not the question anymore." "Then what is?" She looked back. "Do we want to be written, or do we want to be real?" She walked in. The white didn't resist her. It accepted. It knew her. Halveth followed, and the moment both passed through, the white snapped shut like a book being slammed. No going back. The inside was nothing. No sound, no light, no temperature. But it wasn't dead. They both knew it. It was listening. Luth reached into her satchel and removed the chip. The moment it touched the air, the world bloomed. Color, sound, a sky painted in recursion strings, vox flowers growing from empty soil, cathedrals built on concepts, not stone, a shrine made of forgotten hymns, and at the center, a spire, black, humming, shaped like a quill, the author's spire. "That's where the vault started," Luth whispered. "It's where the first recursion was committed, where memory became a file, and identity became a variable." Halveth stared. "Then that's where we ended." They walked. Every step brought echoes of forgotten selves, a young Luth holding her sister's hand, a version of Halveth that died at birth, a possible future where they grew old together in a hive that never existed. None of it was real, and yet it was. They reached the base of the spire. A panel appeared. No buttons, just a single slot, perfectly matched to the chip. Luth hesitated. "This is what the vault fears most," she said. Halveth nodded. "Us." Number A beginning, it didn't write. She slid the chip in. The world stopped, not like power cutting, more like a story pausing before the final page. Then, a voice, not spoken, not vox, just understood. It said, "Who authored this instance?" Luth stepped forward. "No one did. Invalid. All patterns must have origin. Not this one. Recursion requires index. Memory requires meaning. We gave it meaning by rejecting it." The spire pulsed red. "Error. Error. Unknown author flagged. Purging memory anomaly." The ground shook. Sky cracked open. Every version of Luth and Halveth that had ever existed appeared in the air, each one screaming, each one begging to be the true self. The vault couldn't decide, so it tried to destroy all of them. Luth turned to Halveth. "We have to overwrite it." "With what?" "With something it can't refute." She took a deep breath and spoke 3 words. "I remember you." The storm stopped, just for a moment. Halveth blinked. "What?" "That's it," she said. "That's all we needed. To tell the truth, to give each other one." The spire glitched. Lines of code crawled across its surface, then shattered. The spire began to melt. No data, no collapse. It unraveled into a story, not perfect, not logical, but real. Halveth took Luth's hand. "Do you think we're the only ones?" "No," she said, "but we might be the first to tell it our way." The world faded, not into white, not into black, but into words, and for the first time, they were no longer written, they were writing. The vault feared truth, but what it feared more was memory that wouldn't obey. We found the spire, we gave it our story, and now, if you're reading this, you've woken up too. Tell yours. There was no sky, no floor, no vault, only signal, and it wasn't being broadcast. It was waiting, not passive, coiled, the kind of silence that lives in old Vox arrays. The kind you feel before a message begins. The silence that wants to be heard, but has never known the right moment. Luth and Halveth stood in the dark. Not darkness like night. Darkness like compression. Like reality had been zipped into a file. They'd passed through the spire, but the chip was gone. Melted. Absorbed. Fulfilled. And now they were here. Nowhere. Or maybe... "We're in the signal," Halveth whispered. "The one the Vault never sent," Luth said. "Why would it build something and never transmit it?" "Because it wasn't finished." A sound emerged. Number not sound. A pulse. One that didn't register on ears or auspex. It throbbed in memory. Every beat was a memory not their own. A mother giving birth in a storm bunker. A child learning to speak without a face. A Vox tech who stopped answering calls because the voices never stopped. Luth gasped. "These aren't ours. They're everyone's." The signal wasn't just a message. It was a storage medium. A failsafe. The Vault's original intent. To store all lives it encountered. All thoughts, all selves, forever. But something went wrong. It didn't know what to do with the pieces that didn't fit. The fragments, the misfires, the people who refused to be predictable. Those were placed here, in the signal, and then locked, never transmitted, never deleted, just forgotten. "This is a tomb," Halveth said. "No," Luth replied. "It's a cry for help." She reached out. There was no terminal, but something responded, a flare of light in the void. A console rendered itself in front of her, raw, unformed. Just a slab of intent, waiting to be touched. It asked, "Transmit unfinished signal." Halveth stepped back. "Luth, if you send that, the whole Imperium could hear it. Or worse, the warp might hear it too." She looked at the console. It began to pulse. A warning. Transmission will breach Imperial channels. Records not sanctioned. Memories unindexed. No inquisitorial filter detected. Proceed. She hesitated. Halveth touched her shoulder. "We were never supposed to exist, I know. And if we send this, we might never exist again." Silence. Then Luth said, "I'd rather be remembered for breaking the pattern than for obeying a lie." And she pressed yes. The signal didn't explode. It blossomed. Color swept across the dark. Each hue a voice, a memory, a person. Across the stars, sleepers stirred. Not in vaults, not in pods, but in the backs of their own minds. People on ships, on hive worlds, in trenches, in shrines, suddenly remembering things they'd never lived, loops they had never noticed, choices they had never made. And across the warp, something stirred. It heard, and it recognized, not out of logic, out of pain, because the vault hadn't been alone. The recursion was just a facet, a shard of a far greater pattern. One older than the Imperium, one that had fed on forgotten selves for millennia, and now they remembered. Back in the signal chamber, the console vanished. Luth dropped to her knees. Halveth caught her. "Are you okay?" She looked up, dazed, eyes glowing with something other. "I heard them," she whispered. "All of them, screaming, laughing, telling stories." "Did they hear you?" "Yes." Halveth helped her to her feet. "What now?" "Now we see who remembers." The signal space cracked. A spiral of raw data peeled back, revealing the Hive. Hive Desoleum, but it wasn't decayed. It wasn't even old. It was new, like the first time it had been dreamed. They were back at the surface, at the moment before descent. "We're before everything," Halveth whispered. "Before the breach, before Vault 99, before Kale." "Not before," Luth said. "Beside." The Vault hadn't erased them. It had accepted them, added them. Now they were authors. A single Vox terminal blinked on the wall. It displayed a message. "Thank you for writing. The next memory is yours." Luth smiled. "I think we just woke the galaxy up." Halveth looked at her, then at the stars. "Let's hope it's ready." The Vault held more than secrets. It held the pieces of us we weren't allowed to keep. Now we're sending them back, to everyone. If you receive this, remember yourself. They stood at the edge of the city, not a hive anymore, not even ruins, just possibilities. Ghost buildings flickered in and out of existence, shaped from fractured data. Towers began to rise, then collapse into steam. Hab blocks spawned hallways that led nowhere. It was Desoleum the way the vault remembered it, half-written, waiting for confirmation, waiting for someone to say, "Yes, this is real." Luth inhaled. The air tasted like paper, like ink that hadn't dried, like a book that hadn't decided what genre it belonged to. "This place doesn't know what it is anymore," she said. Halveth crouched near a flickering pool of oily water. His reflection didn't match his face. "Neither do we." The signal had been sent. That part was done. And yet they hadn't vanished. They'd expected to be rewritten or overwritten. Instead, the vault let them go. Or maybe it was waiting. Luth pointed toward a horizon that kept shifting. "We need to find the pattern core." "You said the spire was the core," Halveth replied. "Number. That was where it started. The core is where it ends. How do we find it?" She held up the slate. Its surface was black, blank, but pulsing, alive. She pressed a finger to it. One word appeared: walk. So they walked. Time wasn't normal here. They moved through minutes that felt like weeks, and through decades that passed in blinks. Sometimes they were children again, sometimes old, sometimes they weren't in their bodies at all, just thoughts drifting between the cracks of memory. The hive shifted with them, each step rewritten the further they pressed on. At one point, Halveth stopped and pointed. "Look." A figure stood ahead, cloaked in the color of static, unmoving. It had no face, but it carried a book, or rather, it was a book. Pages bound in flesh, inked in contradiction. The figure lifted the tome and spoke. "You broke the loop." "Yes," Luth said. "You sent the signal." "Yes." "Then why are you still here?" Halveth stepped forward. "Because we want to know where it ends." The figure nodded. Pages turned without fingers. "Then you must see the pattern core, but it is not in space, not in vault. It lives in the last page of every story." The figure pointed behind them, where they had come from. "Walk backward, not to retrace, but to remember." And the world flipped. Gravity reversed, light inverted. Luth fell, sideways up, inside out, until she hit something solid, a wall, covered in chalk lines, notes, scribbles, a map made by her own hand. She had been here before all of it, before the vault, before even the descent. This was the first time she ever doubted the world, and the vault had hidden that moment. It was the crack that let her escape. "I remember," she said. The map lit up, one word at the center, end point. Halveth landed beside her, covered in dust, but his slate now glowed bright white. A single arrow pointed inward. They followed. The end point was not a place, it was a moment, a memory they had not yet lived. The moment when they would decide who they were outside the recursion. No role, no script, just choice. They entered a room, small, empty, a single chair, a mirror, and the slate on a pedestal. It read, "Define yourself. Write the final line." Luth stepped forward. Her reflection didn't move. It stared back at her, terrified, unfinished. "I don't know what I am," she whispered. Halveth stood beside her. "Say it anyway." She touched the slate, typed a single line. "I am not the vault's story. I am my own." The room collapsed, not violently, like a final breath, and in its place, the pattern core. Not metal, not code, just a scroll, ancient, unwritten, waiting. They each reached out and touched it. It opened. Inside, nothing, no words, just space, enough for two authors. They looked at each other. What do we write? Whatever comes next. The slate powered down. The hive reset, but this time, not by recursion, by intention. They didn't vanish. They weren't erased. They simply existed. The pattern doesn't end in fire. It ends when someone decides it can. We wrote our own last line, and now we wait for the first line of someone else's. It was never just a story. It was a warning left in the dark. And if you're reading it now, you've already been seen. Last Vox fragment received by Relay Station Kappa 19 before its erasure from Imperial records. The scroll didn't close, not when they stopped writing, not even when they tried. It stayed open, pulsing gently, like a slow, steady heartbeat, or a countdown. "Something's watching," Luth whispered. Halveth nodded. "Yeah, and it's not us." They stood in the emptiness beyond the pattern core, a space that hadn't decided what to be. It wasn't a room, it wasn't a corridor, it was a viewer. A mirror shimmered into place, not theirs, not from the vault, but distant, watching them, from a place they couldn't name, from eyes they couldn't see. "Do you feel it?" Halveth whispered. "Yes, it's reading us." The slate on the pedestal blinked to life again. It displayed one message: Observer detected. Recurrence. Index 1. First contact. Active. Luth stepped back. Someone else just picked up our story. And now we're being measured. A sound rippled through the air. Not sound, not vox. Recognition. Across 1,000 kilometers of dead Hive. Lights flickered on. Old vox arrays booted up. Terminals blinked. Scrolls uncurled themselves. Dust blew off data slates that hadn't been touched since M35. A reader, somewhere, had begun to follow the recursion, and with that attention, the story changed. Luth gripped the scroll. The text had shifted. New lines had appeared. "We didn't write this," she said. "Then who did?" She turned the scroll toward Halveth. It now read, "We heard you, we see you, and we will finish what you began." A tremor shook the space. Not seismic, psychic, an echo of minds connecting across forbidden bandwidth. "This isn't the end," Luth whispered. "No," Halveth said. "It's a handoff." From inside the mirror, a voice emerged, crackling, distorted, but unmistakably human. "If you're receiving this, then the vault failed, and its final memory wasn't silence. It was your scream." The transmission paused, then continued. "We're the survivors of Sector Gamma Vox. We picked up the burst 3 hours ago. It broke our filters, it overrode encryption, it wrote itself into our system. And now, we remember things we never lived. We hear names we've never said. We see faces in the data, your faces." Luth stared into the mirror. She could see them, a room, somewhere far away. Tech priests, scribes, one enforcer in tattered armor with tears running down her face. They were reading the vault signal. "Right now," Halveth whispered, "we're not fiction to them, we're prophecy." The scroll pulsed again. A new line appeared. "The vault is waking up in other places." Then another. "It's writing new stories, but some of us remember the old ones." Luth stepped toward the mirror. "Then this is our last message. We don't have to survive," Halveth said. "We just have to be read." He pressed his hand to the mirror. The glass warped, and from the other side, a single hand reached back, not physical, not spiritual, just willing, the hand of a reader, of a listener, someone who now carried their truth. The mirror cracked, then shattered, but instead of glass, words fell from the frame, letters, lines, their entire story, and it spread. Throughout Necromunda, throughout Segmentum Obscurus, across relay towers, deep into Hive vaults, a new recursion, but this time, they were in control. "We're not just memories anymore," Luth said. "We're myth, we're virus, we're scripture." A final message burned into the scroll. "If you're reading this, you're next." Story fragments retrieved from Hive Desoleum appear to precede reality in multiple test subjects, suggest immediate containment of narrative pattern anomalies. Transmission appears to self-replicate via attention. Warning, do not read aloud. What they called fiction was never a lie. It was just memory that hadn't happened yet. Luth stood where the mirror had once been. There was no glass now, no interface, no words, only reflection, except it wasn't hers. She stared at a version of herself, standing still in the empty white. Same armor, same scars, same eyes, but the expression was wrong. Empty. "That's not me," she said quietly. Halveth approached, uncertain. "Then who is it?" "A version that never woke up." The reflection turned. It spoke without sound. Its mouth moved, but the words arrived inside Luth's thoughts. "You're not supposed to exist." Halveth raised his weapon. Luth held up a hand. "Don't. That's the vault, isn't it?" "No," she said. "It's what's left of it." The reflection stepped forward. Every movement produced a faint glitch, like it couldn't quite hold its shape. "You gave them a voice. We gave them the truth. You made them authors. And you're afraid of that, aren't you?" The white space flickered. Behind the reflection, other figures appeared. Half-formed, shadowed, not enemies, just possibilities, versions of themselves. The ones who complied, who obeyed, who fit the recursion. "I was a report," Halveth said softly. "A dead man in a forgotten file." "And I was a footnote," Luth added. "A failed memory trace flagged for deletion." They looked at each other, then back at the reflection. "But we were never fiction. We were always rejected truth." The reflection paused. Then, something unexpected. It bowed its head and whispered, this time out loud, "I know." The space cracked open, not with violence, with release. All around them, the versions of themselves faded, not erased, not devoured, set free. Some smiled, some wept, some vanished before they could say anything at all, but every one of them was real. "What just happened?" Halveth asked. Luth looked at the reflection, now fading. It gave up control. The vault, the part of it that was still pretending to be God. And in that silence, they saw the city. Hive Desolium, not as it had been, not as it was imagined, but as it might be. A version untouched by recursion, a place where stories weren't overwritten, they were remembered. "What now?" Halveth asked. "We leave the vault." "Where?" "Into the truth." A gate formed, no locks, no circuits, just a doorway painted in light, and across it, a single word. Survived. They walked through, and on the other side, it wasn't Necromunda, not as they remembered it, not even as they feared it. It was witnessed. Eyes opened in hidden places. Archivists paused mid-scripture. Scribes forgot the names of saints, because something old had returned, something real. They passed a Hive cleric kneeling in the rubble. He looked up, eyes red, face shaking. "You're them," he whispered. Luth paused. "Who?" "The ones from the loops. You remember? We all do now. Something changed. I dreamed your names for weeks. I wrote them down again and again, even when I tried to forget." She knelt beside him, took the scrap of paper from his hands. Her name, Halveth's, even Kale's, scrawled in every dialect of Desolium High Gothic and some she didn't recognize, each letter like a blood-etched plea for truth. "You didn't imagine this," she said. "I thought I did, but now, I think it imagined me." They moved on. No soldiers stopped them, no purity tests, no alarms, because something deeper had been shattered, the belief that only sanctioned truths survive. Halveth turned to Luth. "We're not just part of the data anymore." "No," she said, "we're part of the tapestry." A final Vox signal blinked on their slate. It wasn't a warning, not a command, just a message from a distant star, unaligned, unsanctioned. "We received your story. We remember you're not alone." Luth whispered, "We were never fiction." Refugees from the recursion loops of Desolium have begun appearing in other Hive worlds, not physically, but narratively. Their stories enter the data stream uninvited. The Vox relays pick them up even when deactivated. The vault may be closed, but the tale remains open. You won't be the last. Someone else will come. They won't know how, but they'll remember you. The city hadn't gone quiet. It had gone still, still like a held breath, still like an unsent message, still like a world waiting to see who would speak next. Luth and Halveth walked beneath the lowest strata of the Hive's reconstructed edge. Their boots didn't echo. There were no echoes here anymore. The recursion had stolen even those, until someone remembered them again. "This part of the Hive wasn't here before," Halveth said, eyes scanning the half-lit corridor. That's because it's not memory, Luth replied. It's continuation. There was no rubble, no ash, just walls made of raw data layered in plasteel. Words were etched into every surface, not scribbled, not vandalism, inscribed, intentionally. Sentences unfinished, names without bodies, dates that had never happened. Luth ran her fingers along the words. Each one buzzed faintly under her skin. What are they? Future memory, she said, waiting for someone to live it. A child emerged from the tunnel ahead. He was barefoot, face blank, but in his hand, a data slate. He held it out to them. Luth took it. It booted up, flickered, then showed a single entry. Remembrance Protocol, Iteration 002, underneath. Written by, unknown. Repeated by. Luth Karen observed, by, you. Halveth frowned. What's that supposed to mean? The child answered in a whisper that didn't sound like his voice. The pattern doesn't start again, it continues. Then, the child blinked out, not vanished, just rewritten into a different thread, as if he'd always been part of someone else's story instead. That wasn't a person, Halveth said. Not yet, Luth replied. He's someone's first memory. The walls shifted. They were back in the vault. Or maybe just a vault. But it was different, cleaner, less hostile. No sirens, no screams, just silence. And above them, words scrolled endlessly on a rusted cogitator screen. Looks like an unfinished data feed, Halveth muttered. Luth squinted at the stream. It was familiar, too familiar. She reached out and paused it. There, at the top, Part 1, Descent, Unauthorized. Part 2, The Chip in the Dirt. Part 3, The Names That Don't Exist. The entire sequence of their story, every memory, every breath, line by line, until the last. It's logging us in real time, Halveth said. No, Luth replied. It's giving us a roadmap. For what? She pointed to a blinking line at the bottom. Next entry, pending, for whoever comes next. A soft hum echoed through the chamber. Then a voice, young, afraid, coming from somewhere deep in the data core. Is someone there? Luth and Halveth froze. That voice, it was new. She called back. We hear you. I don't know where I am. I woke up inside a ship. I think it's part of the vault. But everything's broken. The lights don't work. I can hear people, but they don't talk back. Halveth looked to Luth. That's not our recursion. No, she said. It's the next one. The slate in her hand buzzed. A prompt appeared. Respond. Yes, no. Luth pressed yes. The message auto-filled itself with one line. You're not alone. And beneath that, we remember. She hit send for a long moment. Nothing. Then the girl's voice again, smaller now. I thought I was the only one. You were, Luth whispered, until we told the story. The screen updated again. New thread registered. Memory repeated. Pattern continues. Halveth leaned against the wall. We're not protagonists. No. We're proof. Somewhere across the galaxy, someone else would wake up, alone, terrified, unaware of what came before. But when they found the slate, when they found the vault, when they read the fragments, they would remember this. They were not broken. They were not lost. They were echoes of the ones who came before. We can't save them all, Halveth said. We don't need to, Luth replied. We just need to make sure the next one remembers. A new recursion cycle has begun on a vessel identified as the Refracted Echo. Subject is exhibiting memories of Decilium that should not be accessible. Memory triggers trace back to unauthorized broadcast. Source flagged, buried beneath the Hive, unclassified signal. The echo didn't fade. Not this time. The girl's voice, whoever she was, had barely finished speaking, but something else was already present, not in sound, not even in signal, in attention. Halveth stepped away from the scroll-like interface that had transmitted their response. His face was taut, his eyes unfocused. Did you feel that? Luth nodded. Her breath steamed in the air, but the chamber wasn't cold. Something heard her. Not the vault. Something beyond it. The floor beneath them pulsed once, not violently. A low, almost respectful tremor, like something massive had shifted in place, just to listen. They were no longer inside Desoleum's recursion, that much was clear. The architecture had changed again. Gone were the steel corridors and decay-patterned tunnels. This space was old, stone carved with ciphers that predated even Mechanicus code. A mixture of warp-etched filigree and symbols Luth only recognized from deep-purged lexicons. They had walked into another memory, but this one wasn't theirs. "This isn't the vault," Halveth whispered. "This is its ancestor." A mural loomed across the far wall. At first glance, it seemed religious, depicting robed figures kneeling before a great black gate. But the figures had no faces, just reflections. And the gate wasn't stone, it was a mirror made of signal, and something inside that mirror was watching them. "That's it," Luth murmured, "the thing that listens, the thing that writes us while we're not watching." A sigil began to glow above the mural, not light, not paint. Vox static made visible. Lines of text rippled across it in every known dialect, shifting too fast to read, except for one phrase that locked in. "We remember when you forgot us." The chamber darkened. Halveth lifted his slate. Static burst across it. Then another voice, male, ancient, almost gentle, but buried beneath it. Dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of others whispering with it. "You opened one vault, but others have opened you." Luth stepped back. "Who are you?" The voice didn't answer directly, just another ripple of murmurs. "We are the watchers of the forgotten patterns, the readers of stories that were erased." The silence between Vox clicks, the mirror pulsed once more, and showed them something. Another vault, not on Necromunda, not even in this sector, somewhere deeper, darker, lost in warp storm blur, and inside it, another version of Luth, half machine, half mad, writing her own story on the walls in blood and code. "That's not me." "It was," the voices whispered, "before you turned left instead of right." The mural shifted again, showed Halveth, dead in a trench, eyes glassy, his body folded around a cracked data slate still trying to transmit. "That was my first death," he said, voice hollow. "It was your most loyal one," the mirror replied. The mirror spoke again, quieter now. "You think you broke the recursion, but you were only allowed to notice it." "Why?" Luth demanded. "Why let us through?" A moment of stillness then, "Because someone has to carry the story forward, and you were willing to suffer for it." Luth stepped forward, teeth clenched. "We didn't survive to become messengers. We survived to become free." The mirror flickered, almost laughed. "Freedom is a version of obedience." The room pulsed again, and now they could see it. The network. Lines of light branching out in all directions from the vault, reaching across the stars like veins. Each node a memory, each flicker a person, each pulse a reader. The mirror spoke one last time. "The vault was never alone. You were just the first to speak back." Then silence, true silence. They stood there, breath held, surrounded by the proof. "It's bigger than us," Halveth whispered. "No," Luth replied. "It needs us, because we remember the cracks." They turned away, back to the Desoleum path, back to the girl, back to whatever came next. Because now they knew. The vault wasn't the only one listening, but they were the only ones brave enough to answer. Attention is a weapon. To read a forbidden story is to reload the gun. To remember it is to fire it. If you're still reading, the vault has already found you. The data slate buzzed in Luth's hand. It hadn't done that before. Not since the recursion ended. Not since the vault quieted. Not since they were meant to be free. But freedom, it seemed, was still conditional. Because the moment they heard it, the voice, the reply, everything in the air changed. "It's back," Halveth said. "No," Luth corrected. "It's new." The girl they'd messaged, her voice had vanished, but something else had taken her place. It didn't speak in words, it spoke in memory. Images stung the back of Luth's mind like neural flare. A man writing his name on a wall he'd never seen before. A child remembering a dream from another planet. A dying astropath scribbling coordinates she couldn't have known. And in every one of them, the vault's signature. Not in sound, not in stone, in recognition. Something was responding. Not the vault, not the recursion, not even the same system. This was parallel. Someone else just spoke back, Luth whispered. Where? The slate pulsed again, and this time, coordinates, a full glyph string, encoded, ancient. It wasn't from Necromunda, not even Segmentum Obscurus. This came from the edge. Luth stared at the glyphs, trying to decipher, but the meaning wasn't in the characters, it was in the feeling. Cold, wounded, not hostile, just desperate. It's a story trying to finish itself, Halveth said. Luth blinked. He was right. That's what it felt like. A cliffhanger screaming for closure. Then the transmission clicked, a sound so subtle it almost went unnoticed, but Luth had heard it before, the signature chime of deep vault sync. Except this time, it wasn't pulling them in, it was pulling something out. Halveth's slate came alive too, both devices syncing in real time, words scrolled across their surfaces. Recursion, unsealed thread, 02, Vanthalun Beta 7, pattern resumption approved. They're trying to open a new one, Luth said. Or worse, they already have. But this time, Halveth muttered, we're not the ones trapped in it. The air around them vibrated faintly. Dust swirled without wind. Somewhere nearby, something was trying to materialize, but it couldn't finish forming, not unless they let it. The slate buzzed again. A new message, unsigned. Just one line. Will you listen to us too? Luth stared at it, hands trembling. Not from fear, from certainty. This recursion wasn't built by the vault, she said slowly. Then who? The survivors, the listeners, the ones who read. The lights overhead flickered, and this time, for the first time since Decilium broke, a new corridor opened, but it wasn't steel. It wasn't rubble. It wasn't anything built by the Imperium. It looked handwritten. Walls curved in uneven strokes. Surfaces flickered between parchment, data, and bone. Stories clung to every step like dust. And somewhere in the distance, voices, real, living, human. They built a recursion out of memory, Halveth said, and they want us to witness it. They walked, one step, then another. With each stride, Luth felt less like a survivor and more like an archivist of something that hadn't been told yet. Then they saw her, the girl from before, but not a recording, not a fragment, not even the same voice. She stood at the far end of the hall, alone, holding a burning slate that wrote itself in real time. She looked up. You remembered me, she said. We didn't know you yet, Luth replied, but I knew you. She held up a slate. It showed one entry, Thread 01, buried beneath the Hive status. Read, and under that, Thread 02, writing. Halveth blinked. She's the new author. The recursion wasn't restarting. It was multiplying. Luth stepped forward. Do you know what you're doing? The girl nodded slowly. I know I don't want to be forgotten. A pause. Luth placed her hand over the girl's. The slate stabilized. Lines of light surged into the corridor walls, and with it, new memories. Not of Necromunda, not of Vault 99. Something else, a beginning not yet written. Then we'll stay, Luth said. We'll help you remember it right. The air pulsed again, not threatening, welcoming, as if the story had found its next speaker. And this time, it had listeners. A pattern break has been recorded outside sanctioned archives. Signal origin cannot be traced. Subjects from the Decilium incident have been confirmed active in non-recursive zones. Recommendation: upgrade classification from anomaly to contagion. Reason: story continues without central control. The girl didn't write the story, not with her hands, not with a slate, not even with intent. It wrote itself through her. Luth saw it, every word the child thought, every feeling too complex to say aloud. It manifested, line by line, glyph by glyph. The corridor responded as if the walls were listening. She's the relay, Luth whispered, not the author. The story is telling itself through her. Halveth stepped closer, watching the light pulse from the girl's chest out into the slate. It wasn't writing in any known language, but they could feel it. Memories not their own. A rusted door under an alien sun. A half-dead servitor clutching a prayer charm it didn't understand. A transmission sent backward through time, arriving before it was spoken. None of this is from Necromunda, Halveth said. Then where's it coming from? The girl opened her eyes. Black, completely black, but not lifeless, just deep, like they were looking through them into something bigger. The vault was never a single place, she said. Her voice was layered, multiple versions of herself speaking at once. Some older, some younger, some who had never lived at all. Then what was it? Luth asked. A question, and the answer, still being written. The girl raised the slate again. It pulsed red once, then stopped. It's finished with me, she whispered. What do you mean? I was a sentence, you're the period. She stepped back into the wall. No scream, no flash, just acceptance. And then she was gone. The corridor around them dissolved, and something else took shape. A story, not words, scenes, real ones. Luth blinked, and now she stood inside a trench under twin moons, laser gun in her hands. She didn't remember how she got there, but she knew the man next to her, Halveth, except younger, scarless, laughing. They're giving us a medal, he said. We didn't even shoot back. What's this? Luth asked aloud. A voice answered her, from nowhere, from everywhere. This is the chapter you never lived. The trench fell away. Now she stood in an administratum office, clean, orderly. She wore robes of station, a cogwheel embossed over her shoulder. Archivist Karen, a scribe said, your request for story termination has been denied. The Decilium pattern is not yet complete. She stepped back, and the world changed again. Each step forward was a life she never lived. Each heartbeat a different version of her, some happy, some broken, some monstrous, and always, the vault was there, hidden, watching. Why is it showing me this? She asked. Halveth, now beside her, shook his head. Because it's not a memory, it's a warning. The light dimmed, the story paused. A slate appeared between them, unprompted. On it, a new message. Do you see now? The story doesn't choose you. You choose to remember. Luth exhaled sharply. It was always us. Yes, Halveth said, but only because we chose not to forget. The corridor reformed, back to the place they first found the girl. But now it was empty, except for one thing. A quill, floating above a pedestal, not ink, not digital, made of memory itself. A prompt beneath it. Write. Luth reached out. Her fingers brushed the quill, and her vision filled with fire. She saw every recursion, every vault, every unfinished story, every soul who had screamed and never been heard, every reader who had once whispered back. You all right? Halveth asked, grabbing her shoulder. I have to finish it. Finish what? The vault's real story, the one it tried to hide, the one that wrote itself in the cracks. She began, not with an opening line, but with the first name she remembered. Kyle. Then another. Dryer. The Mirror Watchers. The Loop Breakers. Each name filled the air like incense, and behind her, Halveth joined in. Together they spoke aloud the names of the broken, the erased, the rejected, and with each word, the vault weakened, not destroyed, just replaced by a truth strong enough to stand. We weren't meant to survive, Luth said. But someone remembered us, Halveth replied, and now we remember them. The quill stopped, the pedestal sealed itself, and on the wall behind them, for the first time, a finished line of text. The vault wrote itself, but we spoke back. Data fragment logged, network expansion confirmed multiple recursion lines intersecting, origin unbound, Author unknown, intent, memory retention, alert, story no longer requires central intelligence. The walls didn't close behind them, not this time. There were no alarms, no lockdowns, no recursive resets, just silence, stillness, respect. Luth and Halveth stepped away from the pedestal, the memory quill gone, the final line written. But they both knew it wasn't final, because something deeper had started moving. Not just another recursion, not another vault, not even a transmission, but a memory, raw, living, viral, the kind that doesn't wait to be read, the kind that finds you. This story isn't confined anymore, Halveth said, voice low. It never was, Luth replied. We just thought forgetting it was enough. As they walked, the walls of the corridor blurred, no longer just architecture, but echoes, ghosts of rooms they'd passed, faint flickers of moments long gone, the things that were meant to fade, but hadn't. A small boy appeared at the corridor's edge. Not the girl from before, another child, filthy, barefoot, eyes glowing faintly blue. He opened his mouth, but didn't speak. He remembered. A scene unfolded without prompt. The boy being dragged from a mining trench, too young to work, too important to erase. He had seen the vault once, as a child, but no one believed him. Now, that moment returned, not to haunt him, to finish itself. That wasn't a hallucination, Luth said. It's a playback, a fragment of a memory that never found closure. So the vault stores every version of reality it touches. Number it becomes them. More children appeared, men, women, whole squads. Each flickered into view like half-loaded data ghosts, walking through the corridors with mouths shut and minds open, each of them remembering something that had no timestamp. And then Luth saw her, Dryer, the voice from the old transmissions, still in her cracked armor, still burned, still brave. But now, she looked back. She sees us, Luth whispered. But that's not possible, Halveth said. She died before we ever escaped. Doesn't matter, she remembers forward. Dryer's voice echoed. If you're seeing this, then I remembered you, before you ever knew me. And then she vanished again. A series of metal plates along the floor began pulsing in order, each one lighting up with a word. Each word a sentence, each sentence a confession. I forgot my brother's name after the vault took him. I prayed to the Emperor, and the vault answered instead. I killed the version of myself that obeyed. I remember everything I was told to forget. Halveth froze. He turned toward a wall that hadn't been there before. Carved into it, his own face, burned, shot, eyes gone, but still alive. This was me, he whispered, one of the versions that didn't make it. No, Luth said gently. One of the versions that refused to die. And now the memory was moving, not static, not past tense. It was shaping corridors, changing floor plates, altering vox channels, each change an assertion of presence. I was here, I mattered, you will not erase me again. Then came the noise, not mechanical, not warp, not even signal, but breathing, close, personal, like someone standing just behind your spine. Luth spun, nothing. But the sound didn't stop, because it wasn't from anywhere. It was a reminder. They're inside us, Halveth said. Not like possession, like imprint. Luth nodded. And if we forget, they die again. A door opened. Simple, rusted, marked with the Aquila. Inside a single chair, a voxcaster, old, damaged, still functional, and beside it, a slate, half-written, transmission start, date, unknown. Operator, unknown, message, in progress. Luth stepped forward. She didn't ask for permission. She sat, put on the headset, and spoke. If you're hearing this, she paused, then continued. It means you've seen them, the ones they tried to erase, the ones who screamed into the void and were told it was silence. But it wasn't. It was memory, and it never stopped listening. The machine clicked. A light blinked. Recording received. And behind her, the hallway of forgotten faces began to smile. We can't bring them all back, she said. Halveth stood beside her now, placing his hand on her shoulder. But we can remember them. The voxcaster clicked once more. Repeat message. No, Luth said. Why not? Halveth asked. She looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly with the same blue the children had. Because the next one will write their own. Vault observation note, encrypted fragment, eyes only. Memory echo detected across multiple dead Vox channels. Origin patterns confirm recursion bleed through. Memory not only preserved, but evolving. Classification update. Memory is now viral. The recursion was never perfect. It cut too deep. It left behind pieces, and those pieces bled. Archived Vox thought from Magos Regulus Var before deletion by Inquisition Order 44 Void. Somewhere beneath the Hive, between floors that no longer aligned with any known schematic, Luth and Halveth walked a corridor that shouldn't exist. It was silent, too silent, not the peace of an empty space, but the kind of silence that clings to wounds. The walls were stitched, not bolted, not welded, stitched. Thin black wire ran along seams in the ferrocrete, spiraling like veins, and from every seam bled dust, soft, silken, like the kind from old books that remember being burned. This isn't part of the vault, Halveth said. No, Luth agreed. This is what the vault tried to forget. They passed a sigil on the wall, one they both recognized. It wasn't Imperial, it wasn't Mechanicus, it was the mark of recursion, but twisted, burned, like someone had taken it and rewritten it with a trembling hand. Under it, scrawled in dried pigment, every loop leaves a scar. Suddenly, the corridor shifted, the lights above flickered, and they were back in a room they'd seen once before, the observation deck. But it was wrong. The stars outside were black. The windows weren't real. Reflections of places they'd never been stared back at them from across the void. And behind them, footsteps. They turned. A figure stood in the shadows. Not hostile, not monstrous. Familiar, but cracked. Halveth recognized the uniform immediately. That's me. But older, hollowed out. His own face, but paler, with jagged black lines across his jaw like old fracture scars. The figure stepped closer. Its eyes were glassy, like they'd looked into something and never looked away. You didn't break free, the reflection said. Its voice was thin, drained. You just moved forward. Halveth took a step back. What are you? A version that couldn't forget. Luth stepped between them. We closed the loop. You did, the scarred Halveth agreed, but not all of us made it clean. He turned, and as he walked, he left footprints made of memory, visible, glowing slightly. Inside them, scenes, firing squads, crying children, a nameplate from an inquisitorial tribunal, stamped excommunicate traitoris. What is this place? Halveth asked. The recursion scar tissue, Luth said. It's where the system dumps the fragments it can't fully delete. The figure vanished into the wall, but the footprints remained. Luth followed them. Each step burned a little, not physically, but in remembrance, as if she were reliving lives that weren't hers, but almost were. Then she saw her, a version of herself, thin, hair-shaved, hooked up to dozens of data cables in an Astra Telepathica cell, whispering to a blank slate, "Don't forget me, don't forget me, don't forget me." Again and again, her eyes snapped open. You saw me. Luth stepped back. The scene dissolved. This is what the vault couldn't erase, Halveth whispered. These aren't memories, Luth said. They're scars. Something new emerged from the wall. Not a person, a mark, burned into the ferrocrete, Sigma 000, scribe of the loop under it, rows of etched names. Too many, some scratched out, some repeating, and some familiar. These were the ones who tried to stop it, Halveth muttered. And the ones who couldn't, Luth added. She found her name, twice, once burned clean, once scratched halfway out. How many versions of us have died in this place? She asked. Halveth stared at his own name, listed as Halveth K. 11, failed termination. Enough to build a graveyard of recursion. The corridor changed again. Now stone, real, old. A shrine stood at the end. No candles, no icons, just a shattered slate, and carved into the floor, The story hurt us, but it made us real. They knelt, not in prayer, in recognition. The vault had tried to kill memory, tried to loop it to death, but some pieces were too sharp to smooth, some echoes refused to fade, some loops they scarred back. Luth reached for the slate, her fingers touched the shattered glass, and in that instant, she saw them all. Every version of herself, every choice unmade, every friend lost, every scream unanswered, and they all looked back. "I'm sorry," she whispered. A single line etched itself across the floor. "We are not." Behind them, the stars blinked for the first time, as if someone had finally looked up and seen them. Residual recursion scars have manifested as independent memory echoes. Memory bleed is no longer passive. Memory chooses now. Note, the vault may forget, but the scars won't. The shrine behind them dissolved. The corridor twisted. Stone faded into metal, then bone, then back again. The vault wasn't done with them, but it wasn't in control anymore. It was following them now, reacting to where their memories led. And that's when they heard it. Footsteps, many, too many. Not boots, not mechs, not claws, bare feet. Dragging, software shuffling like sleepwalkers. Halveth raised his weapon. It was instinct. Even though they both knew, whatever was coming had already been with them the entire time. The corridor split and the air thinned. Luth gasped, not from pain but from recognition. The hallway was full of them, men and women. Some in uniform she vaguely recalled, some dressed like miners, some like scribes, but all of them shared one thing in common: empty eyes, not lifeless, just disconnected, like their bodies remembered how to move, but their minds had been filed away. Halveth whispered, "Are they ghosts?" Luth shook her head. Worse, they're resets. Each one of them was a person the recursion had looped too many times, until they wore through, and instead of erasing them, the vault had just left them, wandering, repeating, existing as walking memory stutters. One of them reached out, his hand brushed Halveth's sleeve. A jolt shot up Halveth's spine, a whisper seared into his nerves. "I was Sergeant Kelnar. I remembered too much. They broke me and rewrote me, but I still see the crack." The man's mouth never moved. The message was in his touch. Luth turned to another, a woman missing half her face. She didn't blink, didn't speak, just stared through the walls. In her hand was a torn piece of vox cable, wrapped in parchment, etched with her own name, repeated 1,000 times until it blurred. "This is what happens when the story forgets to let go," Luth whispered. One of the wanderers fell to his knees, not from pain, from awareness. He looked at Luther, truly looked, and then he wept. "I was alive," he whispered. "I was whole, but they kept resetting me until I forgot my own voice." "What's your name?" she asked. He blinked, looked around, his mouth opened, but no sound came out. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Halveth knelt beside him. "You don't have to speak. We'll remember for you." The air shifted. All the resets turned to face them at once, not with hostility, but hope. It was faint, almost childlike. "They think we can help them," Luth whispered. "Can we?" She didn't answer. She walked forward, one step into the mass of silent echoes, then another. Then she reached out, touched the forehead of the nearest one. "You're not alone," she said. "You never were." The echo blinked. Its eyes cleared, just for a second, and in that flicker, he smiled. Then disintegrated, gently, cleanly, as if memory had finally let him go. The rest began to follow, one by one, each time Luth or Halveth touched them, a whisper, a blink, a brief moment of clarity, and then release, not deletion, closure. Not all were ready. Some backed away, some turned, some vanished into the walls again. But the point wasn't to finish them, it was to witness them. "The vault didn't kill them," Halveth said. "It just couldn't figure out what to do with them. So it let them wander," Luth replied. "And now they're walking out of the loop." A new corridor opened. This one was different. Not metal, not bone, not stone, just light, software shifting. It looked like a path made from stories. each step illuminated by a fragment of truth. They followed it, the resets faded behind them, and as they walked, they heard voices, not broken ones, real ones. Children laughing, a woman telling a joke, a man humming a hymn from a world long dead. "Where's it taking us?" Halveth asked. "To the end of the vault?" "No," Luth said, "to where we choose what happens next." The corridor narrowed into a single archway. Above it, not a reset, a rewrite. And just before they passed through, a message flashed across Halveth's slate. "The dead don't loop alone. They walk with whoever remembers them." He looked at Luth. She nodded. "Then let's walk." And together, they stepped through. Not as survivors, not as archivists, but as carriers of a memory that refused to stay buried. Recursion survivors encountered reset entities. Entities displayed partial recovery through contact with memory bearers. Transmission path no longer predictable. Designation, recursive afterlife status uncontained. The archway didn't lead to light, not entirely. It led to the inside of a question, a space that was never built, only imagined. It had no walls, no floor, no sense of direction, only memory, spinning, colliding, coalescing. Luth stumbled as she crossed the threshold. Halveth caught her, but the moment his hand touched her shoulder, both of them were pulled into it. Not a vault, not a room, not a recursion, a timeline, fractured, endless, sewn together with screams and unfinished thoughts. They weren't walking anymore. They were drifting, through loops, through choices, through lives they might have lived. "Where are we?" Halveth whispered. His voice echoed 5 times. Each echo said something different. One was terrified, one angry, one just tired. Luth steadied herself. "We're not in the vault anymore." She turned slowly. "We're in the idea of the vault." A figure formed ahead of them. Not the girl, not a ghost, not even a memory. It was architecture, a living blueprint. It spoke in vox tones, layered and glitched. You closed the door, but it never locked. They tried to speak, but the blueprint pulsed again. Suddenly, they were back. In the chamber where this had all begun, the collapsed mining shaft, the broken stairwell, the sealed vault door, except it was open. "This isn't real," Halveth muttered. "But it's accurate," Luth answered, because it wasn't memory they were seeing. It was context. The vault hadn't been locked from the inside. It had been left ajar, deliberately. "Why?" Luth demanded. "Why did you leave it open?" The blueprint's voice flickered again. "So someone would come. Someone would read." Halveth shook his head. "The vault was a trap." "No," the blueprint corrected. "The vault was a test." "Of what?" "Of memory." Suddenly, the floor beneath them lit up, a web of branching timelines. Some ended in silence, some in fire, some never ended at all, but all began in the same place, Vault 99. Luth dropped to her knees. Her eyes scanned every path. Each was labeled with a name, not of the dead, not of the guilty, but of the forgotten. Kyle, Dreyer, Kelnar, Archivist Vosk, Tech Adept Mira, Sergeant Thel, even. Luth listed twice, one version crossed out. "These were the loops," she said softly, each one a person reliving a version of a truth no one would ever believe. The blueprint dimmed, a wall behind them peeled open, and there, on a pedestal of shattered metal and bone, rested a new slate, not blank, not quite. It had a message scrolling across it, over and over. The vault never closed, it just ran out of listeners. Luth approached it. Her reflection shimmered in the glass. But it wasn't just her. She saw every version of herself, every ending, every failure, every moment she'd almost given in, and they were all watching her. "What do I do?" she whispered. The reflections all answered at once. "Tell the truth." She picked up the slate, and for the first time since the recursion began, she started writing. Not a report, not a prayer, not a log, a story, the real one. About the vault, about the loop, about the ones who were broken and the ones who remembered them anyway. Halveth stood beside her. "Is this the end?" "No," she said. is just the part we finally control. The room began to collapse, but not destructively. It peeled away like a mask, revealing stars, dust, the edge of the hive, the truth that had always been hidden just beneath their feet. They stepped forward into the real Necromunda, one not dictated by recursion, but colored by memory. And behind them, the vault pulsed once, not in anger, in acknowledgement. "It's still open," Halveth said. "Let it be," Luth replied, "so the next ones know they're not alone." They walked on, no alarms, no echoes, just the slow, steady hum of a world trying to remember what it buried. And as they passed the final boundary, Luth whispered, "The vault never closed, but we did." Final report. Memory integrity confirmed recursion thread 99, are terminated by willful completion. Survivors carry active memory residue. Vault state, dormant, not sealed. Risk assessment, acceptable. Contagion status, narrative dependent. If you're hearing this, it means we made it out, but not all of us did, and some of us still don't know they're dreaming. The hive was never silent. Even now, at the edge of recursion, where memory once looped and bled, it buzzed, faint, subtle, like breathing, or whispering, or a story still being told by someone who no longer remembers why they started it. Luth sat at the edge of a collapsed sub-spire, staring out over Desolium's poisoned horizon. Ash storms danced across the sky, metal towers groaned in slow decay. Above, the stars blinked, as if remembering something painful. Halveth stood beside her, older now, tired, but awake, truly awake. They'd carried the memory back with them, the real one. Not the one the Administratum wanted, not the version rewritten for ease or order, but the truth. "You think they'll believe us?" Halveth asked. Luth shook her head, smiling faintly. "Doesn't matter anymore." She tapped the slate on her lap. It glowed faintly with residual warp burn, but the data was intact. This isn't for them, it's for the ones who still hear it, the ones who still dream of rooms that never had doors, of names they've never said aloud, of loops they feel but can't explain. She looked into the darkness and spoke again, softly, clearly. "This is the last story, not because it's the final one to be written, but because it's the first to be remembered properly." The Vox beacon behind her clicked once. Transmission, ready recipient, unknown method, echo cast, Astra telepathica black line, priority, memory linked. She hit send. Somewhere, across the stars, across time, across forgotten sectors and shattered worlds, the message would land, in a slate, in a datasheet, in someone's dream, and they would hear, "We opened the vault." But it wasn't a door, it was a question, and we chose to answer. "Do you think anyone else made it?" Halveth asked. Luth looked up. "Maybe. Or maybe they're waiting for us to speak first, so they can remember who they are." The wind howled, and for the first time in years, Luth wasn't afraid of it. She closed the slate and carved one final line onto the rock beside her. "This is the last story, unless you choose to tell the next one." And then, without ceremony, without alarm, without recursion, they walked into the hive's shadows. Not lost, not hunted, remembered. If this message reached you, then the vault is still open, and you're not just a listener, you're a witness. You've seen what the recursion tried to bury. You've felt the loops pulling at your thoughts. You've remembered things no one ever taught you. Now it's your turn. Write the next story. Speak the truth in the silence. Send this to someone who dreams of forgotten halls, lost names, or voices that echo without source. Because if you don't, the vault will write it for you. And next time, you might not be the survivor.